Well,
What do you think?
look,
I don't know.
a lot of killing and shit.
Barely. You know, I feel like I was, I feel like I was saying what I needed to say and being,
Meremy, your microphone is so muffled. I can't even understand what you're saying. But here's the deal, Mercer. Can you restart this stuff?
Said something about suicide and self-harm. What?
That doesn't make sense. Oh, are you talking? Is it like? Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
People were talking about Hamudi,
Oh, okay.
But listen, but I'm telling you, Mercer, you still have the moment of element of surprise. Like you can still restart the stream.
Yeah.
Can you check it out if you can quickly start new one?
Yeah, I'm just doing it now.
Say what? I lost audio.
I'm restarting it now.
Okay, I'm gonna bounce to general one and let me know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, brutal.
Okay, so I think we're back up. All right, so.
Yeah. What do we do this time?
I don't know. Let's see here. So I think it had to do with what was being talked about with Hamudi, maybe.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Because what else was suicide and self-harm?
Don't say the words. Don't say the words. Say self-unalive. Oh my God, this is so ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we live in dystopia.
Yeah, we don't know what happened there. I got a self-harm violation of some sort. I'm wondering what the heck happened there. Yeah, so
5 people now.
Okay, well we'll catch back up. They'll check back in.
Yeah, we have 9.
Okay, so yeah, it had something to do with it said something like self-harm or whatever. I don't know if it had maybe to do with the title or something that someone said. We don't know. Yeah, they're after us, because I don't know where I got cut off, but I was talking about the Saudis. I don't think I was saying anything self-harm related, but whatever. We just got to be careful what we say in the chat, all right? Just avoid, say self-unalive or something, like algo speak. Yeah. So anyways, I was talking about the Saudis in Yemen and how they went to war in Yemen a couple of years ago, 2014, it looks like. No, Hadi got ousted in 2014. He was the original president. And then the Saudis intervened in, 2016? Yeah, just let's avoid talking about Hamudi. I'm pretty sure he's doing fine. I'm sure he's doing great. Anyways, so the Houthis were just getting completely demolished by airstrikes and flattened. And they were in a situation where there was a massive cholera outbreak that affected 1/3 of the population. Half the country was on the brink of starvation. And yet at the same time, the Saudis could not invade. The United Arab Emirates could not invade, and it was because they don't have land armies. They were relying on mercenaries. Mercenaries make horrible troops because they will not risk their lives for a paycheck. Nobody will. What they will do is they will stand guard at the border and prevent others from coming in, but they're not going to invade enemy territory. And as a result, the Saudis actually had to surrender the conflict. They had to sign a stalemate treaty with the Houthis, who survived, as we know, because they then started to cause trouble in the Red Sea with shipping. They won that war, despite being outgunned by a degree, I think, that is greater than anything else that has existed in recent memory, since maybe the Afghan War. Because you can't win a conflict if you can't put boots on the ground. And I think the U.S. is not as bad as Saudis in the sense that they do actually, like the Americans do have a ground army, but it's largely a mercenary army now. Like there's no patriotic Americans that see serving in the army and sacrificing themselves to the nation as their duty. Like they don't identify. There was a way in the past where you could see America as an extension of your ethnicity if you were like an Anglo or if you were just white. You know, like a white American would see America as the extension of his people. But now that's not the case anymore. You can't pretend that anymore. So as a result, and hang on just a second here, I think I have to pop out the chat so that you guys can see the chat in real time. Just 1 second here. Here it is, mini quick chat. There we go. Yeah, so I would actually predict that if America does end up entering the war directly, I think they're going to lose. And I don't mean that they're going to lose as in they're going to occupy Iran and they're going to just eventually get bogged down and then leave of their own volition and then the Iranian government retakes the territory. I think they're going to fail to actually be able to capture the territory in Iran. Like they might make some progress in some areas, but they're not going to get far. And it's because the Iranians have a much greater reason to fight than the Americans do. Like at least in Iraq, there was some kind of pretense that sort of dumber Americans could get behind. It was like weapons of mass destruction, 9/11, they're terrorists, they hate our freedoms. There's none of that now. Everybody knows that this is a war for Israel. It's not going to last. It's not going to be like how it was in 2003. So if the Americans do enter the war, it will be a disaster for America. And I think Trump realizes that. Trump, I think, was willing to enter the war on Israel's behalf, but the backlash was so intense that he realized it would destroy his presidency and it would also just fail. It just wouldn't succeed. I think he has military commanders that told him that. But it remains to be seen. So how's the stream doing? Are we still going? Meremy, are you there? I think we lost Meremy. You think so? Maybe. Well, I'll take this time, since Meremy seems to have disconnected. There was the guy that's on the right side of my thumbnail. His name is Emile Durkheim, and he is actually the founder of sociology as a field. And there's a lot of people that are rightfully scornful of sociology because it's become completely gay and cucked. It really has. But it wasn't always this way. The sociology that Emile Durkheim pioneered, he actually took suicide rates in different. I shouldn't have said that. Now I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get the stream nuked now. Okay, forget I said that. Unalive rates. He looked at unalive rates between different European countries in the very end of the 19th century, and he compared them to each other based on different categories, like for example religion, ethnicity, to determine what was the causing factor. And he found that Protestants had a higher unalive rate than Catholics in every country in Europe where they coexisted. And it didn't matter what nationality, because this included Germany. German Catholics had a lower unalive rate than German Protestants. And it didn't have to do with education, because even though German Protestants were more educated and more literate than German Catholics, Jews were more literate and educated than both groups, and Jews had also a very low suicide rate. And it couldn't just be mental illness, because the Jews also had a much higher rate of insanity. Like, they were much more likely to be institutionalized for mental illness than the Protestants or the Catholics, but they had a lower unalive rate. And the question is why? And what he found is that this has to do with how strongly integrated the society is. And the way that he measured that was he compared Judaism, how it was practiced as a community identity, to Protestantism and Catholicism. And what he found is that because there's more authority in in Catholicism, you can't really question things. There's less individuality. This resulted in more of a communal identity where people felt integrated into the society more strongly. Whereas if you have this more decentralized, more individualistic society, like Protestant countries, where it was sort of, you set your own rules, you read the Bible and you figure it out for yourself. You don't really have this hierarchy that's built in. You become more atomized. You become less connected with the people around you, and this as a consequence causes existential threats to your life or your well-being, to potentially cause you to unalive yourself to a much higher degree than if you had a much stronger community. And what was interesting about the Jews is they had both a strongly integrated society, but they were also very well educated. And the way that Durkheim, because Durkheim was himself Jewish, and he had an insight into this, he described the way that Jews approach education and literacy. They compartmentalize it. And this is something you see a lot with Jews, is that they will just live with cognitive dissonance without any issues. Like, they can hold two completely contradictory points of view without having any internal psychological pressure from it. And so on the one hand, they would take in all of this Western learning to become like accomplished psychologists, like in the case of Durkheim, or physicists or mathematicians, businessmen, whatever. But on the other hand, they would still retain their religious identity and perform their religious rituals and their religious community without even really thinking about it. And as a result, they maintain that strong group cohesion. It's not the religion itself that causes it, but it's this society that the religion is there to bind together. And anyways, this is all dissolved in Western countries. And this also goes back to what I was talking about in my video on men versus women, and how the nation is like a male construct. When you take the nation as an identity and you eliminate it, because that's what liberalism does, it flattens out all of these identities and it makes everyone equal, like equal individual participants in the society. You eliminate the ability for men to identify with that group and be a part of it. Hang on just 1 second here. Okay, we're good. I just got a message. Just wanted to make sure that the chat was still going. You make it impossible for men to identify with their group because the group doesn't exist. It's basically a crime to be identified with the group. Like they actually see you as an enemy. If you identify as like an ethnic Englishman, you can't have national pride. That actually has a huge psychological impact on men. And this actually creates this, what is known as anomie. And here, I'll pull up, this is actually how I found Durkheim. I heard someone use the word anomie, and I wondered where it came from. And it came from Durkheim. He actually pioneered the idea. And it's a condition of instability resulting from the breakdown of social standards and values. It's a state of normlessness where individuals lack clear guidance and feel disconnected from society. So like there's no actual structure to the society. There's no slot that you clearly fit into. That's how all of our societies are now. And it's this complete alienation. And as a result, you can't have fighting men that will fight and die for your country in those circumstances. And this is the situation we're in now. And would I let Saint Hamudi in my country? I don't think so. I have a feeling that he's a little bit of a grifter. in just a second here. Yeah, look, the small hats, they're an interesting group to talk about, and they are important, okay? They do play a role, but I think people will try and use them as an explanation for things without looking at any nuance or structure. I prefer structural explanations to try and understand what's going on. What I've tried to use with them in my videos is I've tried to explain that they have pushed the envelope towards a certain direction, but they are not the originators. Like, it's not like they put guns to people's heads and told people, you have to change your society and move in this direction. The arguments that I've made are that there's already been this framework that existed that allowed us to get pushed in this direction in the first place. And all that's happened is that the tribe has used these existing mechanisms of liberalism to push us towards a more pure form of liberalism that benefits them more. And that's how we got there. You know, it's sort of like they're the driver in a way, and also not just them. There's other members of that coalition. They're the driver, and the vehicle itself is liberalism. And without that vehicle, they wouldn't be able to drive anywhere. And as a counterfactual to that, I would offer the Soviet Union, because they were very critical in creating the Soviet Union. But within a few decades of the Soviet Union's existence, they were purged out of the Soviet Union. Stalin did not trust them, especially after 1948. Golda Meir, who eventually became one of the prime ministers of Israel, visited the Soviet Union. And the reaction of the people there was so overwhelming that Stalin immediately became suspicious of the tribe in his country, and he manufactured the doctor's plot to get rid of them, to purge them. And this is what they realized, is that the liberal system is really the best system for them to have, because it allows them to hide without. And if you try and identify them as a group, you're already violating the rules of the system. You can't identify groups. Whereas in the communist system, you can identify groups. You know, you can say, like, the capitalists, for example. And this is how usually they would target the small hats. They would call them, they would say that these are the agents of capitalism. That's how they would incriminate them, effectively. Collective Dismal recently referenced a quote about how by the time a civilization has to codify laws and norms, it's already too late. But without codification... I don't know about that, because if you consider how the Old Testament worked, they codified the laws and norms of the Old Testament, and the small hats kept that going for centuries and centuries. As a matter of fact, prior to the codification of the Torah, they were actually quite irreligious. Like, if you look at the pre-Torah, there's something called the scrolls of. Let me just look this up here. It's not the Dead Sea Scrolls. Egyptian papyrus. Hellenistic. Let's see here. Elephantine papyrus. So the Jews of Elephantine were pre-Torah Jews. And here, I'll pull them up. And these were pre-Torah Jews. And I just said the J word. You know what? I think it's okay to talk about them if you're not saying anything too crazy. What they found by analyzing these papyrus is that they didn't follow any of the Torah rules. They actually acknowledged other gods in addition to Yahweh. It was just, there was like no rules to the religion at that time. The rules were actually codified much later. So, okay. Anyways, yeah, let's get back on topic as far as women are concerned. There's this Let me pull it up now, actually. Here. Oh, yeah, this one is a real black pill. Brutal black pill. Swedish female police officers link intel to grooming and grape gangs. So this is a little bit of an old story, but it popped back up. Someone posted about it in my in one of my Discord servers. And 20 plus female police officers in Sweden, some of them in high positions, have been exposed for leaking intel to criminal gang members they were having relations with. And one of them was caught getting with an underage Somali Muslim. Now, the thing is, first of all, these women that are being posted as pictures, these are not the women that were involved. These are just stock photos. Now, others have said that, oh, well, they were all immigrant women, and that's not true either. Only 7 or 8% of the Swedish population is, or 7 or 8% of the Swedish police force, rather, is of non-Swedish origin. Actually, I'll double check that. Of the Swedish police force is ethnically non-Swedish. It was like 7 or 8%. So even though it's probably likely that some of the women that were involved were of migrant background or partial migrant background, I guarantee you a lot of them were not. And it's like they don't really care. I mean, nationalism is a male thing. And it's all the coping in the comments is really funny too. Well, what's really funny about it is these are women that, of all the places that you could be living, Sweden is like the most feminist and like the most cucked. And yet even then, the women were perfectly willing to throw their men under the bus. And you see this with voting as well. So it goes to show you, it doesn't matter how good your society is. And what I've noticed is that a lot of these women, they seem to think that feminism was like a natural progression to society, that it wasn't something that came out of Western civilization. It was just something inevitable that was going to happen. I'm like, no, it was not. Like it was a contingent phenomenon that very likely could not have happened. Okay, if the situation were different in Europe, let's say the Ottomans and the Maghrebis were able to conquer France and conquer into Germany and take over continental Europe, well, that could have completely changed European civilization. We could have become like a Muslim civilization at that point. And then feminism would just, like women's rights in general, even if Christianity survived in Scandinavia and in Britain, these would be relatively weak countries because the rest of Europe would have been controlled by Muslims. And then it would just be a weird phenomenon in one corner of the world, and the rest of the world would be dominated by patriarchies. You know, if China was a little bit different, and they were not so isolationist, and if they had gotten a head start on colonialism, we could have had a China-dominant globe where the West was just like what China is now, where we're sort of a corner of the world that has some regional influence, but is really walled in on all sides by these other cultures. You know, there's no reason to assume that feminism would have continued on and would have become dominant, but they just assume it is. And I've had conversations with some of these feminists, and I've asked them, what if you're wrong? What if it turns out that feminism isn't something that just naturally happens, and it was something that was contingent, and it was specifically European, and you assisted in wiping out those indigenous European cultures by undermining your own men? Well, okay, what happens now that it's gone, and then there's like no hope of it ever coming back? Like that, the chapter of history is closed at that point. Like there's the period of history where feminism was something you talked about is over. You know? The race-loyal women tend to be more masculine. Well, blacks are in a unique situation in the U.S. because there is actually quite a shortage of men relative to women among blacks. Because a lot of black men either end up getting killed or they end up getting put in jail for whatever reason. This shortens their numbers relative to the women, especially available men, because if you're in jail, like, you're just not available at that point. So there is actually a genuine shortage of black men relative to black women. And already, even with that shortage, there's more black men that breed out than black women. It's like a 2-to-1 ratio. So they have an incentive to actually gatekeep black men. That was a point I was making in my first recent video. Let me just see if I can pull it up, actually. Yeah, they seethe about black women a lot. Let me see if I can find. But yeah, a lot of them say that they're race loyal, but it's kind of a cope. It's because a lot of times the men don't really care. And this is something you notice as well with nationalists, that they tend to be, like, the really explicitly racially aware nationalists are usually guys that are, it's not like women are beating down their doors to get with them anyways. So them choosing to be exclusively for white women or not is kind of irrelevant. The white women don't really care. I'm not saying that to put them down. Like, I'm in their situation as a white guy. I'm sympathetic, but I'm just more realistic about it. You know? And this is something else I wanted to talk about. Unfortunately, it looks like Meremy Jeeks is he must have disconnected and he's not able to come back at this point, which is unfortunate. But this was something me and him were going to have a disagreement on. Because he is convinced that ethnics, and especially black men, are doing a lot better than white men. And I actually argued, I'm not going to argue that that's wrong, even though I disagree with him just on the numbers. I think the difference is a lot smaller than people think it is between whites and non-whites. The difference where it's huge is between men and women. Because look at this. White heterosexual man, match percentage, 7.5%. Conversation percentage, 1.5%. Black heterosexual man, 5.19% match, 0.77% conversation. So just to give you an idea of what the percentages are, and this is how people can lie with statistics, by the way. So if you take 7.5 and you divide it by 5.19, you get 1.445. So that means that you could say, using this data, that white men are 45% more likely to match with women on this dating app that this particular study was looking at than black men. And that would be true. But the difference is less than, like 2.3% difference in the actual match percentage. So it's actually a very ridiculously small number. Whereas if you look at the women, white heterosexual women, 54% match rate, 32% conversation rate. Black heterosexual women, 44% match rate, 18% conversation percentage. That is a much more important number. Like, that disparity is far more drastic than anything between the races. The male-female difference is much bigger. I should start a podcast with Rehab Room and DBDR. That'd be interesting. Rehab Room, I don't think he really does streams anymore, does he? I haven't seen him stream much. I don't know, though. I don't know if we would agree on a lot of things. I tend to go with a lot more of the technical stuff because the black pill has kind of been worn out. There's not really much left to talk about. You know, I was in a group call with Face and a few other guys. He's still around, by the way. Face and All Mess is still kicking. He's just not really doing anything now because everything's been said as far as the BP is concerned. You know? There's not really. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take those ideas and apply them outside of just the looks stuff and the dating stuff, and I'm trying to expand it into these other areas like society, culture, politics. I think it's important actually, because our countries, like the world superpower, can't actually fight wars anymore. Like actual land wars, they can't fight them anymore because they've demoralized their men so much that they're not willing to fight anymore. So yeah. I do actually have a Discord server, and I will send you guys a link because I'm going to start taking calls. It was kind of an unexpected contingency that we lost our co-host. So it's a little bit difficult to hold up the stream on my own, so I might as well bring in people to have a conversation. Just give me a second here. I have to put it in the description. All right, I added the Discord server in the description, so if you want to hop in and ping me, you just have to do @Mercer, and I'll be right there. Am I still enjoying Persona 5? Yeah, I've finished it now, and I'm kind of like, it was nice, but man, that was like 60 hours down the drain. Like, I could have done something more productive, but I guess that's what gaming is for, right? Yeah, Tails is a white nationalist now. Yeah, he is. We've had disagreements. I'm not opposed to white nationalism in practice or in theory or in practice. I just have some qualifications that I think WNs should make. You should explain what the potential consequences are of an all-white state, like a demographic consequences. Like what I explained in my demographics video that I did way back in 2021. The argument that I was making was that as your population pyramid gets older and it becomes inverted, you're going to have more and more men competing for women in the younger age brackets because there's like a snowball effect because there's leftover men in each cohort. Like if you look at every 5-year bracket, there's leftover men because it's an upside down pyramid. So because men are usually competing for women slightly younger than them. So as a result, there's a snowball effect where you get an increasing glut of men that are competing for women as you go further down the population pyramid, until you reach a point where you have these absurd differences in singleness, like what we saw here, where you see that there's like a 51% versus 32% in 2019, and then it goes up to 63% versus 34% in 2022. Like this absurd difference that you can't explain. You have to, like, you can't explain this with 80-20, because even if you had the 80-20 phenomenon, where it was like a bunch of men that were like 2-timing, 3-timing, 4-timing women at the same time, you would still need a huge percentage of them that were able to pull this off successfully at the same time. It just doesn't make sense. And then you don't see the same phenomenon in the older age brackets. So as a matter of fact, women, the singleness rate goes down in the 30 to 49 bracket. So you have to explain that. And the only way you can explain that is just through the demographic phenomenon that I talked about, that there's the excess men from the population pyramid. Now, if you have an all-white Germany, this is the point I made with Tails, you are going to have an upside-down population pyramid that's very top-heavy, and you're probably going to have upwards of like 30% of the men that are going to be excess to the amount of available women. You need to have something that you can do with these men. Either you import foreign women and bring them in, and there's just not enough white women to go around now, because all white countries have this phenomenon. There's no white countries that are not declining in population that do not have negative below replacement TFRs. Or you bring in women from non-white backgrounds that have younger populations, but then this causes issues with the white nationalists because it causes race mixing, which they don't want. Or you create a situation where these white men can leave and go to other parts of the world where the populations are a lot younger. And that's an option that I think is most feasible in a situation where the nationalists win. And I'm actually skeptical that they would even be able to win. And I've made that point in my video on women and nationalism, that women have no incentive to support nationalism. Or by the time that they become aware of how in danger they are from these foreign men that are from cultures that are very misogynistic, it's too late. Like, the demographics are too far gone. You see this in France now. Like, the French mainstream politics, they know that they have the demographic situation tied up now. They just have to wait until the boomers die in France, and that's it. It's minority French in terms of the electorate. It's already, I think, like 60-something% non-French, or 60% French and like 40% non-French or something like that. And it's carried heavily by the boomers. Now French women and Jews are realizing that they're in danger in France, but there's nothing they can do about it because it's too late. You can't vote your way out of it now. No, it's going to be the same in all of our countries. Yeah, let's see if is there anyone waiting in the lobbies here? Not yet. Yeah, roast nats. Roastism. I mean, there's some truth to that. I mean, if you look at I try to not be like a purity-focused guy where I'm saying you only have to go after women that are completely untouched. Like, I've reached the age where that's not even a consideration. So it's out of my orbit at this point. Maybe if I was like early 20s, I would still maintain that delusion. But if you want to be a white nationalist and you want to have white children, you are forced out of necessity to stick to these women that have been through a lot of relationships. Like, I very briefly, here I'm going to out myself now, I very briefly dated a woman who I met through Twitter, funnily enough, and this was about 2 years ago. And she was 26, and so I was 30 at the time. And she told me her count was like 8 or 9, and she said that was actually low for her age. And by the way, this count included men of all backgrounds, and this included women as well. Like, this is not unusual now. And this is a chick that went to a university in LA at the time. Or she finished her education in LA. She was at UCLA. So this was like, admittedly, this is like an upper middle class leftist void, but yeah. I don't know why she took an interest in me, but it was very brief and it didn't last very long. I knew it wouldn't, but yeah. And I haven't had any interest from women since then. But that was what I found. She was like, yeah, that's actually low. That's a low body. And what's weird about it is I didn't even ask about her body count. She offered it to me. That was the weird part about it. I actually tried to avoid it because I knew that it would be a nasty number, and I knew that it would kind of gross me out. So I just didn't want to know. I guess that's kind of cucked, right?
It is kind of cucked. But I got a question for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Who are we talking to here?
You're talking to Jiggle Chaser.
Oh, hey, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. Has First of Incel Maddox been around at all?
He is still
recently?
around, though he hasn't really been involved in streaming or anything like that. He has done a few calls on X, I believe. I've still talked to him
Where can I
a few times.
where can I find him on X?
Well, I don't know if he wants me to give out that information. I'll have to ask him first. But if he says it's okay, I will send you his X account.
Perfect. And I guess I'll just state the obvious. You obviously know this. I guess I'm just saying it for the audience. But just as generally as it is always has been, and probably always will be, the idiots are everywhere. You know, this community is just full of morons, full of idiots talking about the Jews and this and that. And you know, if you feel the need to have a co-host or callers, and these people just aren't up to scratch and they're just kind of stupid, you know, just do it yourself. It's much better that way, anyways.
Yeah, for sure. So, guys, I have a question for you in the chat. How bad was Meremy Jeeks' mic? Like, did you guys find that it was just
it was
intolerable
absolutely
to deal
horrible.
with? Because he's saying that he managed to get back, but he's worried that his mic is going to cause people to get annoyed with him. Is that, do you think that's going to be an issue, chat, or do you guys think it's going to be fine?
I don't think it's going to be fine. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't really hear what he was saying.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. So I guess we can just let him sit because he was caught doing something. I'll just leave it at that. And because he's living with his parents, as a lot of us are, even though we're in our late 20s or older, so he has to kind of be careful on what he says and does. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. But yeah, the Jewish issue, I think, it's important to understand, but the problem is people just take it and they assign so much agency to them. I think that it's a very important thing to know, to understand what's going on. But, you know, like the point I've made is that if you look at their out marriage rate, it's 70% for the ones that were born after the 1960s, I believe. The outbreeding rate was 70%. And Jewish millennials are actually, 50% of them are only half Jewish. So they're actually going to disappear much faster than whites are.
The reason I brought up the Jews is I use that as an example. That's like one point of retardation that these people keep obsessing on. But there are others. There are many others. Like, for example, obsessing over looks. Looks are extremely important, number one. But there are all these other factors that the science is very clear on that women care about that these people just totally overlook. That's just one example of the retardation. There are many others. So that's just the point. You know, you just got so many uneducated morons who think they've got something to say, right?
Yeah, and it's a shame because I wish we could talk about this in an intelligent way because I do genuinely find the topic interesting. I've read a lot about Jews. Like, I find them an interesting group to understand. But you just can't have a rational conversation with some of these people. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm more talking about like the incel community. What I personally care about is this shit because it's so profound and fundamental and true, and like it's exposing a serious, real injustice, and it goes it strikes to the heart of human nature. Like it's such a deep shit, and you see it in the animal kingdom, female standards, the differences between men and women. It's some fucked shit, man.
Yeah, and like what something I realized as I was looking at what was going on in the Middle East, because it's really the first time that there was a direct threat that the U.S. was going to intervene in a major war. And what I realized with how intense the backlash was is like, what is the state? What is a state if you really were trying to define it? And libertarians would say the state is the monopoly on violence. Okay, well, what's the monopoly on violence? Well, it's young men with firearms that are going to defend whatever the freedoms are that the liberal state says it's there to protect. Okay, well, that means that your state should be centered around defending the interests primarily of these fighting age men with guns that are defining the borders of your state and protecting them. If you have a state that does not prioritize those interests, your state is eventually going to fall apart and collapse from within. because you're not going to have men that are willing to fight for it.
As all states eventually do, inevitably.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing: is that if you can have all the money, you can have all the tech in the world, but if you don't have men that are on the ground that are going to protect your territory or capture enemy territory, it doesn't matter. Because, you know, all the laws in the books, you can say, well, seizing my property is illegal or whatever. Well, who's enforcing the law? Like, the law really only exists as long as there's people willing to enforce it.
Well, not true in our case, because we're right on the cusp of having armies of ground robots. We already have armies of air robots in the form of drones dropping grenades. Like, we're so close to men being completely fucking obsolete. This is just another grim reality. I mean,
You are actually right. That is something that I was actually going to talk about that in the first video I did on Schmidt. But I decided to cut it because it was getting a little too off topic. But we are actually on the precipice of fully automated factories. And really the only leverage other than violence that men have is our productivity. And what happens if they're able to completely automate the necessity of male productivity out of the economy? What leverage do we have left at that point? Like, they don't need us anymore at that point. I mean, women are desired by elite men just because they're women. You know, they have innate value just because they can reproduce and conceive children, and they're also attractive to men, elite men that own these factories, let's say. You know, like, they have value. We don't.
Yeah, this is exactly.
We're actually like.
This is exactly the conclusion I came to when just thinking about this a few times. It really is just up to chance. Like, who the fuck knows how this is going to go, and who the fuck knows how it's going to go around the world? Like, some countries, they may just decide to, like, genocide the men and just keep the women as fucking harem slaves. But by then, you know, you'll probably have, like, and if we get, like, Matrix level VR, maybe it won't matter. Like, or it could go any way. You know, it's hard to predict, but that's one of the possible outcomes, where you just have this tiny elite where the men just kind of get euthanized away, and then it's like this elite of men with their harem of women. I'm sure a lot of women would like that. I'm sure those guys would definitely love that. Those guys would absolutely love that. I mean, those guys know that humanity's retarded. Those guys know the average guy's a retard piece of shit. Like, Elon Musk, I'm sure, would love to whack the fuck us all, right? I'm sure all these guys would just love to see us all whacked. So it makes sense.
No, he's completely righteous on that. I agree with him. No, you're right. I'm saying I agree with you, not with Elon Musk. As people are in the chat saying you're talking over. No, you're 100% right on that. And so we're actually facing a very limited timeline. This is another reason why I'm pushing back at least a little bit. Like, I don't want to be cocked on the issue of migrants, for example, committing crimes and causing problems for us. In Europe, let's say, like, or, you know, illegals, you know, making life more difficult for Americans. I completely get that we should be opposed to that. But at the same time, I think being strict ethno-separatists, where anybody who agrees with you on these topics but are the wrong race or racial mixture, you have to exclude them out of a sense of purity. I don't think we have that luxury. Like, we're on a very limited timeline.
Yeah,
at this point. Like, we need to do something politically before it's too late.
We live in a very, as you know, very individualistic society now. No religion anymore, no this or that, no tribalism, which is fucking fine. I've got really no problem with that. But it's really a free-for-all. And I personally am focused on the pussy I can get, the women I can get, you know, like the sex I can have. I think that's what we should all be focused on, okay? Forget the tribal nonsense. You're not going to go anywhere with that, you know? Buy hookers if you have to, right? This is what I do, personally. I love massage parlors. I love brothels. But, like... There's an initial point I was going to make. I was going to build on what you were saying. I forgot now. Sorry about that.
It'll come. Look, I get that, and I'm not gonna counter signal people using professionals and, you know, getting their needs met. I totally get that. Though I would say what I think most men find is the most meaningful in their lives is if they're able to create a family and be able to, you know, have a legacy for the future and be part of a community, like be a valued member of the community. That no longer is an option for most men. Like, even if you do have children, this is the thing. Even if you are able to attract a woman and have children as a white couple, there's no communities that you can really connect to. Like, my sisters are all married with children, and they are all middle-class suburbanites, but all of their neighbors, the only thing they have in common with their neighbors is what they watched on television. That's the only thing they have, and their socioeconomic status. There's no differences or no similarities other than that. There's no deeper bonds than that. And those bonds will break as soon as they move somewhere else, because there's no actual bound-rooted communities.
It's like the Green Day lyric, 21st century breakdown. Like, everything's being broken down. Everything's changing. And this situation we're in is unlike anything in human history, and it's only accelerating. There's good sides, and there's obviously downsides, and we're talking about the downside. And the male sexual value is just nothing. Like, and it's only going to get worse. All those old ways and traditions, it's all gone. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah, no, you're right.
But hopefully we'll have Matrix level VR directly into the brain, and then like in the anti-aging therapies, and that's your best shot.
Yeah, it's true. All right, we have Gultist in the waiting lobby. We're gonna bring him in. Hey, how you doing?
Hello, Mercer. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
I thought I had your original account added. Maybe I do, and you still use that account?
I do have an old account that was a backup account, but I lost the password to it. So I just use this account.
Okay. So my voice is screaming into the void. Terrible.
Yeah. No, if you were messaging me, I wasn't ignoring you. It's just I don't have the. I don't have access to that account anymore.
It was just a few. Like, I basically, as soon as you started making videos again, I was like, oh shit, welcome back. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, well thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of difficult to keep up with video editing and stuff, especially when you're fresh on it. I'm going to try and keep to a schedule on it. It's just when you have something to say, but it's not enough that you could fit it into like a 12, 13-minute video, it kind of makes it tricky, which is why I want to get used to streaming. I know this is my first stream. I'm probably a little bit rough and rambly on it, but if I can get this down
it's exciting.
What's that?
I said, no, it's exciting. It's a good stream. You have a good flow of conversation with other people, and just you're able to talk on subjects pretty well.
Yeah, and hopefully we can start the streams a little earlier so that we can have Europeans on, because there's a lot of Europeans that I know that also have a lot of interesting stuff to add, especially with regards to geomaxing, which the thing is, like, even if let's say the nationalists pull off a miraculous victory in the West is saved, we are able to take control of our countries again, that doesn't mean us individually are going to be better off. Like, we'll be better off in various ways, but not necessarily when it comes to finding a woman. We're still probably going to have to look elsewhere. And so geomaxing is something that is an option for us. And
I'd agree.
People will say that it's hypocritical to support nationalism in your country, but also geomax. I don't think it is, because it's not like you're saying that you are ideologically rejecting your own people, and that's why you're geomaxing. Like, for me, I would go to, say, Latin America, let's say, because I'm in North America. That's where I'm closest to. I would still support if, for example, like, nationalists in Canada somehow were able to get control of the country. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Canada's over. But anyways, if we just pretend, I would support them. I would be cheering them on, and if I could support them monetarily, I would, but I wouldn't go back there because I know there's nothing there for me. I would just support the people that are successful.
I agree with Gultist in the fact that you're one of the best. I mean, nowadays, all the greats are gone. Insomatics, Face and LMS, they're all gone. You're like the last one. Rehab Room's content's kind of trash, but I learned a lot from you.
It's just there's only so much that can be said, and you can't. How many times can you re-say things?
Yeah, Rehab Room's a big channel, and the problem when you're a big channel is that you have to really watch what you say. I'm sure Rehab Room has his own cadre of haters. Like, I only have like 600 subs on my channel. I have people that are following my channel and trying to maliciously report my videos. I don't know how I acquired these haters, but somehow I did. So you just acquire haters as you get larger. I think he knows that just because of his audience and his niche, he has to walk a really fine tightrope. And that's what I imagine.
So it's probably just He's probably getting paid or something, right? But I assume he got PayPal or something. He's got an audience to add money. I don't know how that works, but about nationalism. Okay, look, I'd love to import. Fuck nationalism. It's kind of retarded. I mean, I want to go to Thailand, okay, but it costs a lot of money. It's like it's not a lifestyle I can afford right now. I want to be international. I want to go fuck pussy. Sorry about that. I want to go have relations with women.
No, I think we could all agree with that. I mean, I think that's
I want to import.
Yeah.
I want to break down the borders. I want to break down the borders and import women. Okay, I want to import. Of course, the white women won't like that very much. But that's what the frick I want to do. But of course, if we were to do that, I'm sure those nations that the women are flooding out of would probably go to war with us or something. So that's not really viable. But like, look, it's this whole talk about nationalism. It's like, bro. Like I think you have this audience that's trying to pull you into these weird topics about nationalism and Jews. It doesn't matter. Like, let's talk about women. This is an incel channel. It's about human nature. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, the thing is though, is that I'm actually extremely familiar with these topics. Like, these are not things that I need to be pulled into. I am steeped in this shit. But the problem is that I'm seeing it from my perspective. I am self-aware of my condition and my situation. I know that even if I can craft a beautiful ideology that is completely consistent and could be applied to create like a glorious nation that is able to conquer the stars, whatever, it doesn't matter. This has no impact on me as an individual because I wouldn't be participating in it. Like, I could offer solutions to a nation that would cause that nation to be successful, but those solutions may not apply to me. Like, this is why I used in my first video that I made, recent video, I used that picture of that guy, and that was actually a Canadian that was posting about immigration. We have a huge immigration crisis in Canada. I'll just say that. I'm sure you guys are aware of it. Like, it's pretty. Everybody
That's
knows
right.
about it.
I live in BC.
But
Vancouver.
This guy is like 5'4" or something. You could tell he was really short, and he's out there doing activism, waving the signs around. I'm thinking to myself, if you're 5'4", let's say that you reconquer Canada and you reclaim it for the white man. Okay, the average height will then suddenly shoot up to like 5'10" minimum. I think the Anglo whites and Zoomers in Canada are like 5'11", and like the French are 5'9" or something like that. But they're way taller than 5'4". That's the point. This guy doesn't benefit at all from this. My younger brother is actually the same height as this guy, and my younger brother benefited from Southeast Asian women in Canada. He actually is not an inkwell. He managed to find a Cambodian girl at a pharmacy that he works at. And his girlfriend is this Cambodian chick that migrated in on a student visa. Okay? That's actually a positive. I think that's a good thing. Now what I oppose is all these men that we're bringing in from like Punjab and whatever. If we could get rid of the men, I think having these extra women here, that just makes life easier for the men. Which is primarily what I'm concerned with. I'm concerned with making life better for the average man.
Apparently there's an influx, a surplus of men coming in. I think you might have talked to this.
Yes.
Is this a real thing?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like more men than women coming into Canada.
Influx, because women, there's a lot more limitations on women's mobility in countries like India. They don't like women going abroad. It's the same as Muslim countries. It's much more difficult as a Muslim woman to get a student visa. Like, the governments themselves will make it more difficult for you. I don't know if that's what they do in India. It may be more of a family thing, but there's a bias. There's definitely a bias I've seen. And then on top of that,
so they're trying to get rid of excess men to throw them at us.
Really smart, but you're throwing excess men at us, yeah.
Yeah, and on top of that, if you look at the demographics of India, Punjab, which is where most of these guys are coming from, has one of the worst gender ratios at birth in India, because they abort so many of their girls. What are we supposed to? So they are offshoring their excess men to us. Well, what are we supposed to do with these excess dudes? Our women don't want them, first of all, so they're not getting females. So what are they doing? They're just sort of wage cucking. They're working like there was this recent thing that came out of this student on a protest because he was demanding a permanent residency. Because now that they realize, because they came in on false premises. Like they were on a student visa where you're supposed to go back after you finish school. And of course, they came over here under the expectation that they were going to sneak in and get permanent residency through getting a work visa and then working for 3 years. And these guys are realizing they can't do that. And they're protesting. And this guy put up a sign saying, I deserve permanent residency because I'm working 80 plus hours a week. First of all, that's actually against the law. You're not supposed to work that many hours a week on a student visa. You're limited to, I think it's like 25 hours a week. But second of all, this is what these guys are doing. Here, I found what I was looking for. Just 1 second here. This is what these guys are doing. They take out these loan shark loans with high interest rates, and then they have to work their asses off when they get here to pay it off plus interest. Here, take a look at this. This is gender ratio at birth. And these are actually more recent numbers. So if you imagine that they've been working on these numbers to get them down since, like, I would say the 2000s, when they started paying attention to the numbers, it was probably worse in the 90s and the early 2000s when this data was first becoming available. This is the data now. And you see this red spot here? This is where most of the student visas are coming from, this area right here. This red spot.
So most of the
That's
people
right.
that are coming from the northern part of India.
Specifically the northwestern part, Punjab, and I believe this is Himachal Pradesh as well, is another state in India.
Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster. I'm sure you've also noticed how all these compounding factors come together to make things far worse for men. It's the smartphones, the dating apps, this kind of immigration we see. Like in the last 15 years, things have gotten so bad, and as I'm sort of scrolling around as I'm sort of prowling around on the internet, I occasionally come across statements like this where guys will say, in 2011, I became invisible. Things got really hard around 2013. I hear about it on some old incel streams. So things are getting worse at a rapid rate, and it's only the sad thing is these confounding factors. It's only going to get worse. So as bad as things are now, and as bad as things have gotten in the last 10 years, I feel like worst case we ain't seen nothing yet.
The rate at which it's getting worse is accelerating. It's hard to even see it until you're looking at it in the rearview mirror.
I think you're right.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not even an unattractive guy in the slightest, and I mean, I could turn on the camera if
No, we'll take your word on that. That's all right.
Let's not dox each other.
Yeah,
exactly,
I don't recommend it.
The insane. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm a soon to be a professional boxer. I've been an amateur for about 8 years now. And I want to say like a good 80 to 90% of the people at my gym are completely single. There's like not a single guy. There's no one there that's like with someone. Like none of the women. The best example is actually there was a woman there, and at first for a minute I was like, I've been here the longest. I wonder if this woman is flirting with me, and maybe she was. But of course, she goes for the tallest guy at the gym. Literally, this guy was 6'3", and he was a great guy. I helped teach him a lot. And as soon as he gets with her, disappears from the gym and goes. I don't know where the hell he went. She's just there pretending like everything. She kept it a secret. Actually, she didn't let anyone know because she liked the attention of other people. It's
Yeah, that's
classic.
not surprising.
It's not surprising at all. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is that you also see this from churches. Like there's this big movement to go back to churches, and like tradmax, especially the Catholic Church. And what you see guys saying, and of course the reason they do it is because they're trying to find a single woman. And what they say is, when they get to the churches, it's just married couples and then single guys. That's it.
Yep.
There's
100%.
no women in the churches. And of course, the reason why is because these churches don't offer them anything. Like women, I mean. What benefit would women get out of going to a conservative church? This is putting restrictions and limitations on their freedom. You know?
Yeah.
Sorry. By the way,
I'm a very religious guy. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
But in my church, even the way it is, like the few amount of single women there, like much below my looks max, and I made an effort, and they're ice cold. Like it's only getting worse. It's insane. I just shrug my shoulders because they're not particularly attractive.
Just want to quickly correct an error. I was saying there are these confounding factors, these factors confounding on each other. I meant to say compounding. We have these compounding factors. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, and it makes sense. There was a study that was done comparing Muslims to Christians a while back. I don't have the source on it. I'll see if I can find it. But it was looking at religiosity of men versus women in these religions. What they found is that for Muslims, men were more religious than women on average, whereas for Christians, women were more religious than men. And this was not conservative denominations that they were looking at. This is Christians in general. So this included all the liberal denominations that are really dominant, especially with women in churches. The liberal denominations are where all the women are. And of course, these denominations don't put any restrictions on their behavior. Whereas with Islam, it makes sense for men to be enthusiastically Muslim because they benefit from it. Now, that's not to say that their religiosity is not authentic, but you do have to have some kind of... You're not going to commit yourself to something that is ruining your options as far as women goes. Like if you're looking for a wife, you're not going to commit to a institution that gives you no future, like no reproductive future that is respectable. And the Muslims do have that, even though it's becoming rapidly diminished over time. Like Islam is I would say, the most under attack religion right now, even more so than Christianity. But they still have it somewhat, and that's why there's still religiosity among the men with Muslims. You know?
The westernization of Muslim countries is so rapid. All these closed-off countries, like Saudi Arabia, like the little chink in the armor of them, like slightly changing their laws, is gonna disintegrate them fast. I feel like within 10 years it'll be in insane levels. It's hard to quantify, but
I have something to post, but I can't post it in this Discord server because I'm not in. I tried to verify, but nobody got me in.
Can you post it in the... Oh, hang on a second. We got Chuddy and Crusader in the waiting lobby. Let's pull them in. Hey, how you doing?
Hello.
Well, I'm glad you could make it.
Yeah, I'm just I just heard someone talking about the turning to pro boxing, and I had like some comments on that with the relationships inside the gym, because when I was on...
Oh man, dude, I've been at my gym. Literally, I was the first member. I hope that that actually might give too much information away. Probably not, but I've been boxing for about 8 years, and I'm not an unattractive guy in the slightest. If you just look at the picture, that is my profile picture. I mean, to some degree, you can make out who I am.
Yeah.
And I've got zero. I've got no like genuine interest, and I'm not retarded. I'm a perceptive dude. I understand like if someone's hitting on me, if someone's interested in me, if they're interacting with me for like longer than usual, and like there's nothing. There's genuine like there's actual avoidance in some cases, despite me being like I'm essentially 6 foot, handsome white guy, and nothing. Even my coach was like, "Dude, what's wrong with?" He's like, my coach was like, "What's wrong with these women?" He's like, "What's the deal here?" He's like,
"Yeah, no," and
it's insane.
I remember when I was on Thomas's stream when I when I was co-hosting, you know, I remember one time I got grilled. Like they were asking, oh, you box, why don't any of the guys at your gym try and get you relationships, or are any of the guys in your gym dating? Surely there must be women like, no, that's
No.
not fighting.
Literally
doesn't get you
no.
women. I don't know how
No,
these guys
yeah.
like come up with this idea that like fighting is fighting is not attractive to women. I don't know where this fucking idea came from, except from like the red pill morons who are like, bro, you gotta go to the martial arts gym and get your
You
confidence
can
up."
beat someone's ass and you'll get pussy. And it's like, no, that has nothing to, like, they don't give a damn. Like, even if I was more successful of a boxer than I am now, it wouldn't change much. Like, I don't know. It's not particularly relevant.
No.
Yeah,
I
like-
might just be a little goofy, but
They like aesthetics.
Yes.
and
they
I
like,
cannot help my own nature. I am generally a kind person and helpful, and I go out of my way to help others learn how to box and how to box better. So, like, maybe to a fault to some degree, I correct people and help them.
Okay.
And in most ways, they're what do you call it? They're grateful, but you can't really determine if they're actually grateful or if they're maybe a little annoyed at you.
no, I would say the most
But it's been that
masculine
way.
they
It's
get
been that way for 8 years.
is like, I would say in the modern day is
weird.
like
You there, Mercer?
Leonardo DiCaprio. That's like the most masculine that
Yeah,
women
well,
prefer.
I feel-
Women don't like the super rugged, like hairy grug types. That was sort of a preference that was in the
Well,
80s, and it
I
fell
posted
off by
something
the
in
90s.
the Mercer Callers chat, the VC chat. Feel free to take a look.
Quite the,
Let me see here.
The
VC
wall
Mercer
of text
color,
here. You did the Reddit spacing. Oh no.
comprehending. 30 to
Oh
40%.
yeah, I remember.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about the first thing that you put there.
I've seen this on so many Instagram.
I was muted. That explains it.
Oh, do any of you follow the Instagram account Zoomer? I can't remember his fucking name. Like Zoomer Trader or whatever his name is.
It's kind of hard
No.
to hear you, Chedian.
Yeah, your mic is under a pillow or something.
Is this better?
No, it's pretty muffled.
Is this better?
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, do any of you follow the Instagram account Zoomer Trader? He's kind of like this BP Instagram account.
Zoomer Trader. No.
Yeah.
Let's look him up.
Well, he posted
I'm really
this.
really off. Sorry, continue.
He posted this this image that I don't know if I can find it, but it was basically, I think it just kind of highlights like the ridiculousness of the look standard of women, and yeah, here it is. It's Jensen Ackles with his girlfriend in the 90s. So this has been like, and women were basically saying that she is better looking than him. I posted it in the general.
All right. Let me take a look.
Oh shit, my bad. My account has fucking. I can't post it. My
Yeah,
account
post
has,
it in the
restrictions on it, but it was
posted
basically
in the
Jensen
VC Mercer callers. You should be able to.
No. My account has restrictions. I got a thing on Discord.
Oh, okay.
Damn.
Yeah, they limited.
Is
my
that why
account.
someone in chat said that like Pigeon will get your channel
Are you
banned?
Fed posting somewhere?
What have you been up to, Pigeon?
Now listen. He lives in
Dangerous.
an area, and it's pretty wild out there right now. The average person is becoming a stormtrooper. It's actually unbelievable what's happening in terms of radicalization. So I don't blame him if he was Fed posting off the cuff at some point.
No, I was. No, I what got my account restricted is I changed my email, and then I must have changed too many things at once, so it thought I stole the account or something. But I wasn't like doing any crazy stuff.
Okay. Okay, I see what you mean. Well, is there somewhere I can find this image, or is it?
I think I can DM you.
Yeah, DM it to me.
So have you guys ever noticed that, regardless of race, that women who are born and raised in the northern U.S. states, the non-southern U.S. states, and Canada, this part of North America, are like exceptionally, like they're the worst. They're the hardest to deal with, and you get on better usually with women from anywhere else.
Yes.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed that as well.
I mean, I have to say
Nah,
that, and this may be because I'm partially from this background, is that if you go to the Ottawa Valley area, they're kind of rednecks, to be honest with you. They're kind of like our version of, not as bad as the Appalachians, okay, I'll say that much, but they are kind of a little bit rednecky. But I do find that they are not as bad to deal with. I actually do see families out here from time to time, like normal looking families, though I would say it's relative. So we're talking about compared to what you would find in, say, inner city Toronto or Vancouver. You know, I would say if you compare them to women from other parts of the world, even Europe, I would say probably they're a lot worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're at the epicenter. This is ground zero for the bullshit and the nonsense and the feminist ideology and women's lib.
Exactly.
I think
the man hate.
Yeah,
The center
I
of the
think
man
I
hate.
think if you've ever seen those street interviews with like women, you just see how antisocial they behave, and I feel like this kind of behavior it's been selected out of men. Like, you will never run up on a guy like and ask him a question and he'll just start like insulting you or screaming into the mic, right? But you see a lot of these like women, they behave almost like some of these women, like these I don't know how to describe it, like these feminist, like tough girls. They behave almost like they're fucking Brock Lesnar wearing a bulletproof vest, like completely belligerent. They don't listen to anything. Like, they'll get up in your face, they'll start screaming into the mic, and they act in a completely antisocial way, where as if they were a man, like someone would come and smash their head in.
Yeah.
That's correct. That's correct. That's how
Well,
it is.
a lot of women aren't even aware of how strong men are compared to them. And that tells you, by the way, this idea that there is this surprise snuggle culture, trying to use euphemisms to avoid, getting censored, that there's this surprise snuggle culture that women have to deal with. It shows that it's completely false, because women are so used to men restraining themselves and being as gentle as possible that they're completely unaware of how much stronger men are than women. And you see these posts on social media where this girl will be play wrestling with her boyfriend or something, and she says like, "Oh, let me try and knock you down," and the guy is just completely just stands there, and she's completely unable to even budge him, and she's like, "Holy crap! I had no idea he was this strong." It's like, yeah, it's because men never actually use our strength against you. Like, we're very restrained when it comes to women.
If you look at the stats, there's studies on this showing that there's almost zero overlap when it comes to upper body strength between men and women. So nearly all men are stronger than nearly all women.
It's interesting. When it comes to boxing, the reality check. If there are a few women that stick around and are regulars and compete, and they can get to the highest level very quickly because there's so little competition. All it takes is like a little bit of will, and these women can be like national champions. It's really not hard for most of them. If you have a decent coach, that's
Especially if you take peds, like a lot of them do.
Yeah, that too. I mean, if you have a decent build and you're not a slob, you're not an idiot, and you train hard, that's all it takes to be national level. if even Olympian level. And then add in a little PEDs. But even with all that, like, I'm not some greatest boxer ever, but I have to hold my power. If I didn't, I wouldn't spar with them. I can spar with anyone because I have the ability to, like, limit myself in any capacity. I mean, I've sparred with, like, little kids who were, like, 12 years old just because I have the ability to reduce my power and, like, take it easy on people. Not because I feel bad for them, but because I want them to learn.
So, you guys looked over my list here that I put in the chat?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of points here that would take a while to go through.
Yeah.
Maybe if... I mean, a lot of the stuff in here is stuff that we've covered in the past. Like, a lot of this is regular black pill stuff, which I think we pretty much all agree with. I will single out a couple points, though, where I have a bit of a disagreement. So there's this claim here. I'm going to post it on the chat just so that people can see it.
This is just a list I made about.
So this is actually something where I disagree. Okay, young women identify as LGBTQ, but if you actually look at their behavior, lesbianism is basically a LARP. There's actually a civil
LGBTQ plus is not just lesbian. It's all these.
Yeah,
things
like there's a
together,
lot of
right?
women that are trying to be transgender, and then they immediately realize how shitty being a man is, and they detrans. That is a phenomenon, but that's gonna disappear, I would say, within the next couple of years, because it's hitting the fan now, where you have all of these detransitioners that are saying I ruined my life because I went through with this transition.
That's right, but that's a small minority. The bulk of the young women identifying as LGBTQ plus is going to be bisexuality, which is actually very common in women. Like, genetically, women are less.
Yeah, they claim
their sexuality is less genetically determined.
But here's the thing: also, is that if you look at,
they're more likely to be bisexual.
If you look at women that go from women to transgender men, and they get pumped with testosterone, they don't become, and even if they claim to be lesbians initially, and then they transition to being men, when they get pumped full of testosterone, they do not become, they become more sexually aroused, like they become more desirous of, libidinous, I guess the word would be, but they don't become desirous of women. They actually start to crave.
That's not a claim, and that's not a claim I'm making at all.
Well, the thing is, what I'm saying is
they just become more
actual primary female sexual drive is towards men, and you see this emerge when you pump them with testosterone that pumps up their actual sex drive, and then you see all of these women that suddenly discover that they're gay, they're transgender gay men.
I think what's happening there is, because I don't think there's any studies to back up what you just said. I think you got it half right.
There's very few studies on transgenders because of how politically charged it is.
Her baseline libido, whatever she's attracted to, which is with most women, a huge portion, is going to be a little bit of both. So if you pump their libido up, they're going to be, with testosterone, they're going to be much more attracted to both. But it's way easier to satisfy your desires with men. So if I'm a woman and I'm bisexual and I have a massively high libido and I'm now down to fuck anything, just like an average man is, and I go to try to fuck women and I go to try to fuck men, who's gonna fuck me? I've heard so many lesbian women talk about how and bisexual women talk about how it's so hard to fuck women. I'm just like done with this. I'm gonna go back to men because it's so hard to fuck them, right? Why is that? Well, it's low libido and all the bullshit. You know how women are. So if that's what happens, of course they're going to go fuck men because they're way easier to fuck. That's my theory.
Maybe. But the thing is that if this were true, then there would be, because there's a civil war between what are known as gold star lesbians, who are exclusively woman only, and non-gold star lesbians who have had relationships with men in the past. And what you see with everyone that claims to be a bisexual or a lesbian, you find that at some point in the past they've had some kind of sexual relationship with a man. It's just a thing that happens. I'm not even denying that these women may feel some kind of oddly placed sexual attraction to women, but I would say that's more so their lack of inhibition that they just have this unrestrained sexuality. I would still say that their sexuality
women don't have
primarily-
unrestrained sexualities. It's
primarily-
it's much more restrained than men. Their sexuality is much more restrained. But look, aside from the studies, I've met most of the women that I meet admit to me that they're bisexual. That's most of the women that I personally meet.
Because
admit
that's the LGBTQ women, like the ones that are actually LGBTQ, they actually have a term for it. It's called spicy straight. That's what they call it. All of these chicks that are claiming to be bisexuals, but then if you actually look at their relationship history, it's all dudes. And it's like, yeah, they're just claiming that because it's
but think about it though. But think about this though. It's way easier. Here's the reason, in my view. It's way easier to fuck a dude. Just like they've told me, these women have told me, it's infinitely easier to fuck a dude. Just like with gay guys, when guys go gay, it's so easy now to fuck. Gay guys at the club approach me, right? But women don't. Women don't want shit to do with me, but gay guys love me because men are so easy to fuck. That's the missing link here.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is that it's not entirely that simple in the gay community. If you look at gay men, you see there's actually a division between the tops and the bottoms, and there are way more bottoms than there are tops. I know I don't want to get into this because this is kind of gross, but
I'd love to hear it. This is an interesting discussion. I'm learning.
The aspect of this relationship, I'll put it that way, are much more. Their expectations are much higher than the ones that take the masculine aspect of that relationship. And
And you know what? I'm gonna guess. Look, here's two factors. The bottoms tend to be more physically effeminate. They usually present that way, and there's much higher demand for more effeminate, boy-like, woman-like, bottom-type gay guys than there is for the aggressive, hyper testosterone, top type of gay guys. Right? Think about this. You know how a lot of guys in the incel, Bachabazi boys in Afghanistan, where they dress these young boys up, teenagers up, as women and fuck them. This is normal, and because there's all the women are in harems.
This sounds like we should bring up the Tel Aviv power gays as a reference here.
You have like the femboy maxing, right? Where you have these incels that are just so horny. These young guys, just like, fuck it, I'll just fuck a femboy or a tranny. Well, you're going after effeminate young guys, right? So in the gay community, these effeminate young guys are even straight guys are kind of going after them, right? Some desperate straight guys are going to even try to fuck them. So
it's getting rough. It's getting rough out there. I've actually known guys. Exactly. This is a known strategy now, where guys will go on Grindr, straight guys, and they will set their preferences to everything in order to maximize or try and game the algorithm. And then they'll try and find the NBs or the female to male.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Because they know. They still have their junk. Like they still have a working. I don't know what I can say on the stream just to be careful, but you know what I mean. They still have their plumbing. Their plumbing is intact, but when they get pumped full of testosterone, their libido just shoots through the roof, right? And the thing is that it may be true. It is true that women are more difficult to get, but the thing is that if you look at lesbians, they're still getting in relationships. Like it's not like lesbians are chronically single. At least if they're not black. I mean, black lesbians.
No. These are not. But what I'm talking about is a general trend, general realities. But just to finish my point about the homosexuals, that's why. Okay, these bottom types tend to be more picky. One of the reasons, that's a big reason, because there's much more demand for them. Okay, there's much more demand, right? If you're the type of person who's getting fucked, there's much more demand for people who are going to be the ones getting fucked, right? That's another thing. So it makes sense that they'd have much more demand, much more people coming after them trying to fuck them, and they're going to be and they're going to be much more picky because of that. And also, those types of guys tend to have lower testosterone anyways, so that's probably another minor factor there. That's my theory on that. It's pretty obvious, but yeah.
I just disagree. I think
stream annihilated. Terrible.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to go too far down this because it's kind of a really big, drain.
Bit of a rabbit hole. We can shift
because we could go back and forth on this forever. I just think that if we look at the odds, women are still able to. Yeah, women can get whatever man they want, but they also are a lot more pickier with men. So I think that there's a balance there that balances out. Because the kind of men that they actually want to have relations with are going to be. They're probably going to be as unavailable as the women are. But oh shit! Did the stream just nuke?
No. I reloaded the page and it's back.
Oh, good.
I wanted to make a point on number 7 of your list of I don't know, whatever your list of
My list of beautiful, unfortunate realities. Go ahead.
Yes, number 7 is far more insidious than people initially think, because okay, not everyone's on birth control, but actually everyone is on birth control because it's in the water. Everyone essentially is microdosing birth control unless you have reverse osmosis filters in your house, which nobody has except autistics like me.
Yeah, because it leaks through the woman's piss into the water supply, right?
And the general water supply cannot filter out the parts per million. It's too small. So everyone is microdosing birth control, whether they want to or not.
This factor that you bring up, it does depend on geography, and we really don't know. Like, we're exposed to all kinds of chemicals, all kinds of things, and I don't think there's enough evidence. There really isn't enough evidence to show that the tiny amounts of the micro amounts of birth control and other things in the water are really doing anything, or let alone affecting our libido to that degree, to the point where it'll actually have a serious effect. But there is more than enough evidence to prove that birth control and antidepressants, when you take them as drugs, especially women, only women take birth control, affects their libido highly, like also, really significantly.
Apparently, it also
changes their preference in men.
A lot of women start taking it like very young, at like. A lot of women start taking it very young, at like 14, and apparently it's been shown to have dangerous effects on their brain development. So maybe that's why so many women are like batshit fucking like so antisocial nowadays.
Well, you know what? If you've ever dealt with women that have not taken birth control or that have been off it for a while, you realize that they are completely incompatible with a modern economy where they have to work in the economy. Because it's like a cyclical insanity that happens to them every month, and it's like this huge hormonal up and down, like hormonal surge, hormonal crash, and it just makes it so that they cannot function where you need to have a reliable set of like a reliable time that you arrive at work and then you produce a reliable amount of whatever you're doing, like your service or your productivity. You cannot maintain that.
I totally agree. It's if you any way you can convert biological women, if you can get them any closer to biological men, that'll be better for the workforce and the economy, because men are just better at all this stuff generally. It makes perfect sense. You know that. The more man-like a woman becomes, the better she's going to be in that way. You know,
it means that she's going to be more efficient in the economy. And that's all that really matters in the end.
Well, I mean, obviously, if you have a long-term view of it, though, which now we're really starting to feel the effects of, and the elites are panicking now, at least some of them, of course, you can't have population collapse, because then it's really bad in the longer term. I guess, you know what I'm saying? Like, people really didn't know how this shit would turn out. It's kind of a big experiment, and now we're really realizing just all the mistakes that have been made. We're living through a massive experiment, right? It's just how it is, and we're all, some lose, some win.
Or are you talking about the population decline? I don't think they really care that much about that.
Of course, they have, third worlders to bring in, but
well, yeah. As a matter of fact, if you think about how expensive it is to raise children, to grow them, and then to educate them, that's an enormous resource sink that the state really loses in the end from. Because it's way more expensive to have that than just importing freshly educated people from some shithole and then putting.
You know what? You're right. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, I think what was I think it was like almost $100,000 to raise a kid to 18 now, something like that. Like that, and that's a down payment effectively on the child. You have no idea how that kid's going to come out. Like this is it. This is for the average child. So.
Well, I think you can tell whether the child is going to be a net tax recipient or a beneficiary, or a net tax producer or a net tax negative based on a lot of factors.
Yeah, but then the question is, why take a risk when you can just import somebody that you pre-select based on criteria. This is what the
Exactly. Get them trained up in their home. Let the home country take the burden of raising them up and training them up, and then just bring them over here.
These are what the guys behind JD Vance want to implement in the United States. This is the change that they want to implement. They want to get rid of all the DEI stuff, and they want to replace it with a race-blind meritocracy where they import the smartest people they can find and just vacuum them up from the rest of the world, and then treat the United States
so we can
like
win
a
at
giant
AI.
corporation. And
but the problem is it's not even a race.
And I support that, by the way,
because these guys aren't even better than the U.S. guys.
Oh no, but you don't have to do that starting investment. You can just dump them into the economy and they take off running. And now I'm not American. I would support it if I benefited from it, to be honest with you. Like if I could escape Canada and go to the US, I would do it. But if I were American, that would not benefit you if you're an American.
Well, you do. It is a benefit because.
Well, now how is it a benefit to the average American?
You gotta take the broader understanding, the longer game here. First of all, the United States is a global empire, as you know, of course. It's different. Like you were earlier, you were talking about how the nation is for the benefit of the common man.
It should be.
It's like the United States, first of all, is definitely not a nation. It's a country. It's an empire. It's a global empire that wants to maintain a lead. Okay, it's very competitive.
No, I wouldn't even say it's
a global empire that wants.
I would say it's an economic zone. It's not an empire.
Okay, sure.
I would even contest that.
I would say, okay, fair enough. I would say that it's okay if it's not an empire, right? Like you're, it's the leading country, right? They're trying to have that competitive edge.
I wouldn't even call it a country. It's just a giant economic zone.
Yeah, well, country and nation, two different things, right? Nations, but it's technically a country, and it's trying to maintain this edge, this dominance, right? This global dominance, and the main thing now is getting AI. AI is the holy fucking grail. Okay, if they don't import the top talent from around the world, there's a very strong chance China will get there first. And if that happens, all bets are off. China will be the next predominant power.
China will get there first.
Why
I can just tell you, China will get there first. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many people you vacuum up. China will get there first, and the reason why is because their average IQ is around 104, and there's
exactly.
Okay, now there's some debate as to what the actual population of China is. Some people say it's lower than what they're claiming it is. It could be as low as like 900 million, but that's still, even if we take the lowest estimates, that's like 2.5 times the United States population.
Yeah,
and their average IQ is 104. So they're going to speed past us. That's a given. The U.S. is going to lose this race. At this point now,
so it's a little more complex.
Locking down their borders and keeping foreigners out so that they can reconstitute themselves as a nation, so that they can defend themselves against this new China-centric world order. It's not even really going to be like.
It's a little more.
It's
a little more complex. It's a little more complex than what you say, though, because the Chinese, the average IQ 105, they have a. If you've looked at HBD, you definitely have. They've got a narrow bell curve. They have fewer geniuses.
That's not true.
They don't have a very.
That's not true. That's not true.
Okay, all right. But they also have genes. There has been some studies showing that they have fewer genes related to creativity. They're less. They're much more conformist.
I don't think there's any genes that we've associated with creativity.
Yeah, no, there has been a study. I'm not going to cite the study. No, it is quantifiable. I'm not going to cite the study here, but I don't have the study available. But it's
awesome.
There are. It's clear that Europeans. Okay, by the way, you understand that dysgenic trends. We're all getting dumber. Like there's selection against intelligence, strong selection for stupidity. We're all going to be idiots eventually, like pretty fucking soon. We got to get to AI regardless. This is like the only way we're going to save ourselves. But China. So we have a large Jewish population, for example, like 10 million, and these people have an average IQ of like 115. And that, if you have an average difference, as you were just speaking to, you have a much higher percentage of geniuses at the tail end. So that's one driver of it, right? China doesn't have 10 million Ashkenazi Jews to prop up their system.
Yeah, well, no, the thing is, though, is that the percentage of geniuses, if we're using like 135 as a cutoff, first of all, it's not 115 is not the. If you actually look at what their education and income achievements are, they're parallel to the Episcopalians. And the thing is, if there was a greater variance or variation between the Ashkenazis and the Episcopalians, we would see a difference in the very high end, like the doctorates and the extreme, like billionaires.
Episcopalians, okay, we do see. So
Episcopalians have an average
Episcopalians
IQ of
are also
112.
over.
Ashkenazi Jews have an IQ of about 112. Okay, and if you
Where
if you do the math on this and you see what their what the overrepresentation they should have relative to non-Jewish whites are on the very far end of the bell curve, around 135 plus, you're looking at about 4 to 5 times overrepresentation, which is okay. That is something.
So
but that would
higher
max
up
out
you
at
go,
maybe 10%.
the higher
they would be 10%
the higher
of
up
the American population's geniuses, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, genius cutoff is not 135. It's 145 conservatively, and liberally it's 160. But the higher up you go,
Well,
the
I don't
more,
think
the
you can even
greater the
measure
difference
past
you get.
145.
Also,
I know this because I did
Episcopalians.
waves, and
Okay,
we like
fair enough.
145.
We're going down a rabbit hole
Once
here.
you get to that point, it becomes very difficult to quantify it.
Fair enough, and I'd agree with that. But I think the best quantification of like intellectual ability is just what the fuck your works are, and that's Nobel Prize winnings in physics and math prizes. And,
No,
and just
actually,
general
there's something
innovation.
interesting about
Jews
the
do
Nobel
very, very well.
Prize is that if you
But look, this is a freaking tangent. But look, the main point is, okay, you're right about the Chinese average IQ and the fact that like anyone with like Philippe Rushton, I'm sure you know him. He predicted back in the day they're going to rise as a power. I predicted this. It's obvious. But the U.S. it's like J.D. Vance, these alt-right guys. By the way, it's funny how the alt-right kind of runs the U.S. government. Now, these are race realists. They understand these facts, and that's why they are doing everything they can to bring the best and brightest to the United States because they know that China's got an average IQ of 105.
Yeah, but the thing is that if you run America like a business, there's going to be no one that's actually loyal to this nation. They're just going to see it the same way that resentful employees see their employer as
they don't need
something
it. They don't
to
need that.
get
Like we
money
said,
out of. And
armies of once you got
Drolix,
AI,
Drolix put it really well. Drolix, I had a conversation with him. I know some of you guys will remember this. He said America is like a loot dungeon, where you are in there to loot as much as you can and then GTFO. That is the way America is perceived. And the thing is, you have to look at it from the perspective of, let's say, a Chinese immigrant that's coming or an Indian immigrant that's coming to the United States. They see how America is treating its founding population with utter contempt. Utter contempt. And they realize that, okay, if my children assimilate to this culture, they are going to get overwhelmed by immigrants that are coming in after me. And they are going to be driven downwards unless they can somehow maintain themselves at the very top. As soon as you no longer become at the cutting edge of competitiveness, you're driven out. You're kicked out of the system.
Okay.
It's being run the way that a ruthless business is being run. That is a country that will have no loyalty. That is a country where Indians, Chinese, Muslims, whatever, they're going to take whatever secrets they can find, and they're going to send them back to their home countries that they truly feel loyalty to. And it's not even going to be about money for them. It's going to be about who they truly identify with, because they don't identify with this giant corporation America. No one does.
But if you have AI, right? If you get to AI first, that's all bets are off. Okay, you have ultimate power for who knows how fucking long. And you also have just as we earlier spoke about, armies of fucking drones, fucking robots, and the innovation rate's gonna explode because if you got the AI, they can build you the best robots. Like, dude, humans are obsolete.
That's speculation.
These guys know this.
Okay, like I do think that's going to be an issue, but that is something that is
AI
speculative.
is way
and
too
what we
much.
found is, for example, one of the things that we found with the Russia-Ukraine war that really transformed everything was the use of these really cheap drones from Iran that just overwhelmed anti-air defense. And this actually made a lot of... this potentially made the tank obsolete because you can just wipe out tanks with these cheap drones. These things can happen.
And they've shown that all the American-made drones are garbage. They're years behind the Russians and Chinese.
Okay, but the original point here is that if the U.S. the U.S. because they want to maintain this competitive lead and maintain hegemony as this de facto empire, okay, at the very least is the leading nation that sort of runs the show and sets the policy. They need to get to AI first, and they're sort of between a rock and a hard place. In an ideal world, right? I guess in an ideal world, I don't really care personally, but I guess everyone's white and everyone's got an average IQ of the population's got an average IQ of 150, right? And we're in the singularity and we're on Pluto. I mean, but we don't live in a perfect world, so the best they can do is import tons of people from around the world. By the way, if you look at the GDP per capita of the United States, it's fucking super high. The median wage, okay, the median income
but GDP
of the
per
average
capita,
of the individual
GDP per capita is only relevant to what the cost of living in your country.
I'm just about to talk about wage. I'm just about to talk about. So look at Canada, for example. Canada has got a shitty fucking. It's got a trash median income relative to the USA now.
Listen, I'll tell you what,
now.
if you and I want to
And it's
agree
got a
on something,
trash-
bashing Canada is something that we will absolutely have a field day on, because I could talk shit about Canada 24/7.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, Canada's it's become a total fucking shithole. But if you compare it to the United States, like on every fucking metric that actually matters, the U.S., oh man, they have it so good. They have a way better individual income if you take into account the dollar value difference and the taxes, and there's some other factors. The average American across all fields makes around 25 to 50% more than the average Canadian, than the equivalent Canadian.
Well, yeah, that's because they're largely immune to the inflation that they create, because they're the reserve currency.
The cost of Sure. World fucking de facto empire, right?
The thing is that the world reserve currency actually dooms you, because the only way that you can maintain it, other than inertia, is through your military, and the U.S. military is completely demoralized because they're not a nation anymore; they're a giant corporation. You cannot get people to fight and die for a corporation. This is the most important thing I learned from studying Carl Schmitt, is that you cannot have a nation and a military that is based around economic ideals or even religious ideals. It has to be the political, where you can set a friend-enemy distinction. And you need to have men that are willing to die for your side in order to be able to set that distinction. Sure.
The point I'm trying to make is that the USA, if you look at all metrics, okay, the USA is just the best fucking place to be. The cost of living, by the way, is also lower than Canada. I'm just using Canada as an example, as a comparative example.
So you've got really high wages. Beating up on a literally already dead horse that's been half rotted in the trash.
Sure.
Canada
Other Western,
is so pathetic at this point that.
Yeah, right, fair. Okay, other Western countries, Australia, Europe, whatever the fuck. Okay, the USA is right at the fucking top. And these Americans, these idiots in the United States, right? They talk about, cost of living and housing and blah, 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 all this shit. Whereas, funny enough, the rest of the world has it way worse. But they don't know. The average American doesn't know how good they have it, and the rest of the world doesn't know how good the average American has it, right? Most people just aren't educated on these realities.
Yeah, kind of.
A big reason why it's so good in the United States, a big reason, is because of the system that they've set up and how they run it.
No, it's not the system. It's not the system.
It's a part of it.
No, it's not. It's because America occupies. First of all, America has oceans on both sides of it. It's completely protected from any outside invasions that could happen.
Same
it has
with
two
Canada.
helpless
Same with Australia.
neighbors that are bordering both sides. It has enormous landmass. It has enormous natural resource reserves. Any type of government could have established itself in America if it was run by a sufficiently competent population. It would be successful. As a matter of fact, I would argue that the American government has made it less successful than it could have otherwise been if it had adopted a more continental European style system like what the Germans did with the German Empire. As a matter of fact, if you look at how the Americans modernized, and they became a global power after being a backwater for most of the 19th century. They became a global power by adopting what the Germans would later adopt, which is, first of all, putting up high tariffs, concentrating the value of their labor by limiting the supply of labor and forcing innovation on the productivity of labor to increase its productivity because it was scarce. That's how you create industrial power, an industrial empire. At this point now, America is just the U.S. dollar. There's nothing else backing it.
But whatever the case though, okay, it's got the massive nuclear arsenal, massive technology, leading AI, all kinds of stuff backing it. But the main case,
so does Pakistan.
Sure. But nukes is just one factor.
All nukes mean is that a country can't be invaded and overthrown from within, which would never happen in America anyways, because again, it's bordered. It has oceans on both borders, and then completely helpless countries that are land bordering it. Yeah. So it's never going to be invaded.
They lead in all kinds of stuff.
But that's also true in China. China is never going to be invaded and overthrown.
It's
too large. It's too massive. It's too populated.
But the U.S. is the apple's. It's the apple's eye of the world, if that's the right term. It's not a place to just go and then dip. No. People want the best and brightest. They're clawing to get into the fucking USA and stay there.
They want the money that you can make.
Because it's the place to be.
That's all they want.
Yeah, exactly. That's the same reason.
As is.
Bro,
all they care about is the money. The money is all that matters.
Same reason that I personally would love to get the fuck out of this shithole called Canada or Portugal or anywhere else and go to fucking the US because way better wages. You got rights and freedoms and protections. You got all this stuff. And you just got a way bigger population, way bigger market. Just everything's way better, right? It's because it's
it's a much better loot dungeon.
It's whatever it is, but that's the fucking place I want to stay. Where do you want to stay? Right? A really nice country like the US.
I would live in a country.
It's a great.
I could have a country that
dungeon.
has a national identity, that actually has a sovereignty, and it has a future to its people. Like it has this sense of peoplehood, but is poorer than the United States. I'd prefer to live there. Yeah.
Okay, that country that you just described, is going to be a slave of the country that gets to AI first. By the way, those countries are already
well, I'm going to tell you right
the
now.
US.
I'm going to tell you right now. I've already
already
said China's going to get to AI first because not only do they have the highly intelligent population, they also have nationalism that they can tap into that the Americans do not. So there are Chinese that are, even if they dislike the Communist Party personally, they're still Chinese patriots. That's how China got the bomb, by the way, through Chinese patriots that were operating in Western countries and were able to smuggle nuclear secrets back into China. That's how they got the bomb. The same with India, the same with Pakistan.
Sure.
Okay? America doesn't have any patriots.
China does have that
Nobody's
edge.
loyal to America. And as a result, the country, as soon as it shows any weakness, you're going to see a preference cascade in the United States is just going to implode. And it'll implode from within. It'll never be overcome from without. It'll be from within. And because there's nothing holding the country together. What's holding America together?
A lot of great stuff is holding it together. It's it's the ultimate place to be. Ultimate loot box, right? Ultimate technology,
money,
ultimate power.
That's all it's holding it together.
Great.
Money.
It's great. It's awesome. All kinds of stuff, right?
Money, now what?
But like me personally, I wish the entire world.
Okay, so do you go to America to create a family and create a legacy for the future?
Do you go to America? Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, no, you don't.
I'm going to America
because we see what happens to these
me,
second-gen immigrants. Like their daughters become total gigasluts and their sons become incels.
Yeah. But as with look, you live in a free country, right? If you're in the United States, you got the freedom of association. You can do what you want. I know how this stuff works. So if that's my goal,
no, you can't. You don't have freedom of association.
So look at the Amish.
You can't control. If your daughter decides that she no longer wants to be a conservative Muslim, she wants to take off her hijab and jump in bed with white frat boys at her college. There's nothing you can do to stop that. As a father, if you're a Muslim.
You're right. You're totally right. She has freedom of association. So what you're saying is you want control over your daughter who's 18 plus. Sure, fair enough. Me personally, I don't really care much about that.
All these Muslims, by the way, after 2 or 3 generations. Like this is what happens.
But
to
these
them.
people,
their
these people are
daughters
ignorant.
Completely abandon the religion, or they liberalize it to the point where it's completely. It's a joke compared to what it used to be.
We're living through a big experiment, right? The modern Western world is a huge experiment, and these fucking people who come over don't really understand how this shit works. They're part of the experiment. I mean, but if they understood what we understand, and that was their goal, to keep like this legacy or whatever, they'd probably start a breakaway community within the U.S. like the Amish, and just kind of profit from, like, just benefit from being part of the U.S., but while also sort of, having their own breakaway community within it.
Well, there's a guy that's trying to do that. His name's Arval. He's a white nationalist who's trying to create a separatist community. They're already going after him. He's talking about it on Twitter.
Yeah. Look at the Jews in NYC. They got their own.
There's no freedom of so they're not going to tolerate a separatist community with an ideology that is hostile to the American liberal ideology. They're never going to allow that.
But what about the Amish? I mean,
the thing is, the Amish have been completely isolated for 150, 200 years. This isn't something they started recently, and they've been like that for ages. And they're also because they've limited themselves to 19th century technology, they're completely irrelevant. Like they're never going to be a threat to the American system. If we're talking about separatist communities that want to maintain certain traditions and certain controls over behavior, but they adopt modern technology and they could potentially at some point pose a threat in the future, that's never going to be tolerated.
Yeah, well, another point on AI. So, just really quick, the U.S. has all these, as you know, Matt, all these allies. They have ASML, for example, in the Netherlands. They've got Taiwan. They've got all these people sort of under their control, right? They're sort of, as also they're, on top of the brain drain, like on top of them taking the best and brightest from the rest of the world to benefit them, they're also benefiting from the technologies that these countries who are sort of de facto under their control create. So it's not just the U.S. alone versus China alone. So there's all these factors. The U.S. has got a lot going for it, and it's just leaning as deeply as it can into that so that they can get to AI before China, which they have a chance. It's probably 50-50. Who knows what it is. If it happens within the next 5 years, which is the timeline, it's just a crapshoot. Who knows? It's going to be a fun battle to watch.
Well, I just don't see it happening. I mean, the U.S., I think, because the only thing that's holding the U.S. together right now is its world reserve currency status, which also means that it can never bring back industry. That was a pipe dream. You cannot have world reserve currency and also have competitive industry, because every other currency
the fucking Trump shit is retarded.
Undercut you.
Yeah.
Okay. So all they have
tariffs
now
and
is
plan
the
is
finance sector.
ridiculous.
They're basically like the UK. They have their finance sector, except they also have this tech center. But the problem is that, this is assuming that AI delivers on all of its promises. And a guy up here said, you guys have no clue about tech. I actually don't. I'll be honest with you. Like, I only have a very basic layman's understanding of this. But do you know Ray Kurzweil? If AI actually delivers as to what it's supposed to deliver, maybe that will be the case, that it will revolutionize everything. But if it doesn't deliver, if it turns out that it's actually more like crypto, where it's like, okay, there's some nice innovations to it, it improves productivity, but it's not revolutionary. Well, then, what else do they have going for it? Because the Chinese have manufacturing.
Are you aware of the law of accelerating returns and Ray Kurzweil?
The law of accelerated returns. How about you summarize that for us?
The law of accelerating returns. So it's basically not. You've heard of Moore's law, of course, and I'm sure you've also heard about the ideas that it's slowing down. Well, if you go back to the 1890 census, you'll find that this exponential improvement in information technology has been happening since then. And we've gone from paradigm to paradigm. We're right now in the Moore's law paradigm, but there are other paradigms right down the pike. And it's been a smooth exponential curve in computational power. So we've got our computational abilities trillions of times greater, probably, than it was. And it's just going to continue doubling. And 30 steps linearly is 30, but 30 steps exponentially is a billion. This is why we live in the world we do now.
Okay,
and that's only going to continue.
What does that mean for the nation of America, though?
Well, I'll continue. It's only going to continue accelerating. By the way, America's not a nation anymore; it's a country.
Yeah, I know. I'm talking about the Americans that were the actual American people. Like, what does that mean for them?
And by the way, so just to be, you care. Why do you care so much about white, this sort of nationalism and this racial stuff? Like, is this something you really care about?
Well, yeah, because this is my background as a Canadian. I'm actually a colonial stock Canadian. Like, this is what's happening in our countries right now is directly happening to my people. I'm seeing my people get erased in real time. So I do actually care.
Well, fuck your people. Listen. Everybody sucks. Everybody sucks. Fuck everybody, in my view. Look, humanity is trash, okay? The average woman is trash. The average guy is trash. Most people are retards.
Then the thing is that if you're defining things in a completely nihilistic point of view, that everything sucks, we should just care about all we should care about is ourselves as individuals, then there's really nothing more that we can talk about, because we have no commonalities when it comes to our values and what we think should be good. Like we would just be talking past each other.
Here's what I think should be good. Here's what I would go for. Right, I would love the government to just make a deal with Thailand and say, look, you guys can go to Thailand for free and you can get your pussy that way. That'd be awesome. Of course, it's never going to happen. It sounds ridiculous. Or to enforce prostitution on a massive scale. Instead of sending women to school, you send them to prostitution. I know I sound
that's not what people
your entire end goal is just pussy.
Bro, I love pussy. I'm look, I have a hard time with women, as all of us do, as any average guy would. I mean, don't you want women in your life? I mean, the main theme here is the fucking woman problem, and how bad it's getting. I personally would love. I
guess you're just carrying this to the logical conclusion.
Yeah, I would love just instead of women go to school, if they get it, they go to prostitution school instead, and they're all
but the thing is, you're not talking about something that this is okay. This actually is really good because it leads back to what I was talking about with Durkheim, Emile Durkheim. He talked about something called the egoistic suicide, which is when you separate yourself from all norms and all traditions and hierarchies within society, where society is this coherent thing that has structure and you have a place in it. Let's say, for example, it's the 19th century and you're a Quebec French settler. Okay, you're born in a farming family. You know what your path is going to be in life is that you're going to reach the age of 18. You're going to be given your own plot of land, and you're going to be given a wife to marry. The priest will match you up with a girl that's maybe 16, because marriages were very young back then in Quebec. And you were going to start your own farm and start your own family. You would go to church every Sunday. It was a very religious society dominated by the church. There was a very clear pathway towards from childhood to adulthood, young adulthood to middle age to elderly age. And it was a very stable thing. It didn't change for hundreds of years. And as a result, it was a very happy society because there was no unexpected changes. There was no instability. Now we're in a situation where there's no expectations. If you consider how rapidly things have changed just in the last 50, 40 years, we shit on boomers a lot. We shit on boomers a lot for good reasons, but in a lot of ways, we've never been in a situation where generations have had so much difference between them each generation. Like the differences are enormous, are gigantic.
Yeah,
and
it's pretty cool. I think it's freaking awesome. I think there's upsides and there's downsides, right? There's huge downsides. Okay, the downsides obviously have to do with young single male, the value of young men, and the sexual value of young women. Like this is the shit that we harp on.
They're totally
but
demoralized.
The upsides
they have nothing
are also
to work towards.
massive.
They have nothing to fight for because they don't have an identity. They don't have a coherent understanding of what their place is in the society, what even the society is that they're supposed to be a part of, that they're supposed to be a member in good standing of, that they're supposed to defend. There's none of that. It's gone. It's an empty
there's a lot
void
of upsides.
This is void that
like,
all
for
these
example,
individuals. It's like outer space with gas, where it's just this black void, and there's all these little atoms that are just bumping around with each other, and there's no connection between them. There's no substance. And there's connection.
There's connection and substance right now. Right now, you and me are talking together, right? From across, like hundreds of miles away, on a fucking high-end fucking supercomputer in our fucking living room. That's an example of how things have gotten way better. So in many ways, things have just massively improved. Things have gone up and things have gone down. But let me ask you, what's your goal? What's your goal? What's your personal goal? I mean, I love the incel talk. I love getting into the science of it and the demographic. Like that's so interesting. What are you trying to get at? I'm just curious.
Like what
you seem to be going in multiple
my
directions.
ideal is, or like what I want to.
Like what? Yeah. What's your goal with this channel? Because you seem to be going in multiple directions here, where you're like, okay, let's talk about the women, this problem, and let's get into the science here. And then you're talking about nationalism, a bit of a nationalist, and I'm just curious.
Well, look, I understand my position as a excess male that's just sort of floating around in the void with no purpose and no identity, and trying to understand what I'm supposed to do, what I'm supposed to be in this life. And I understand from the black pill, it gives me some grounding to understand my relationship with others on like a purely Darwinian, like physical level. But I also want to understand what this world is that I've been born into means and why I feel so isolated and disconnected from it. I'm trying to understand all this stuff. And the black pill was the start of it, where you start with a grounding of, okay, we know that the ideology that they feed us in schools is completely false in terms of how the sexes are related to each other, how they interact, what women value versus men, all that stuff. Now I want to understand how these liberal ideas that were false when it came to men and women, how they translate into wider society, and why there's this alienation, this isolation for young men, like young non-elite men. Like if you don't have this automatic inclusion by being part of the genetic elite, you're basically drifting around in the void. I'm trying to understand that.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like if you're just an average guy and you're not part of the genetic elite or the financial elite, these small groups, you're kind of, nowadays, 2025, Western world, you're fucked pretty much. You're just out there on your own. You get lucky, you might not. Most don't, I think.
Yeah. Hard time following the conversation. It is kind of going around in circles. We started off with AI, and then we started talking about, I guess it would be sort of a materialistic, individualistic way of looking at reality versus something that's more holistic and group oriented. I think groups precede the individual. We're meant to be born into something greater than us that will exist after we die, and we're meant to identify with that and contribute to it. You know,
so
like
you're spiritual.
One of the beautiful
things
about religion is not just that it makes people behave. It's also that it's something that is contributed to over thousands of years. Like, for example, if you look at the Catholic Church, you can go through the church fathers contributing to the intellectual tradition, the spiritual tradition, over thousands of years. It's this collaborative effort for something that's greater than themselves. It's like the superorganism almost, that they're external to, but they're also a part of. That's what a nation is supposed to be. That's what we are supposed to be a part of as men. And what's interesting is that, just to bring it back to Durkheim, one of his observations was that alienation from society in the deep, meaningful ways that I'm talking about, like national identity, collective identity, that sort of thing, it doesn't really impact women. It only impacts men in terms of suicide. Women are actually, all women really need are an immediate circle of friends to be a part of. And like that kind of very low level, simple communities. They don't need to be part of something that's collaborative, that's greater than themselves.
Yep. They're
more
those are
spiritually
gender.
simple, I guess you could say. Whereas
men
have a more cultivated intellect and a more cultivated experience. Yeah. And we're more, because we're more absolute as well. We have this sense of objectivity that women lack. We need to be part of something that is also beyond the sort of relational experiences that humans have with each other on a low level. You know, like this is why
what
I think
you're
a lot
getting
of
at
people
is sex differences that are rooted in evolution.
Yeah.
If you look at women are evolved to be a part of, to basically just be harem members taking care of each other's children, and this is why they're much more tuned this way.
It's like,
men,
why do young men
young
men find themselves attracted to religion? Well, in large part, it's because
I think women are more religious than men, by the way.
Well, I'm talking about young men, the surge of young men that you see joining more traditionalist religions. It's not just about women. It's also because we live in a world where there's no absolutes, and they're imposing a form of absolute onto the world. Like, if you look at the Catholic Church, for example, the Catholic Church's position on abortion is derived through metaphysics and logic. It's because of the way that they understand human nature to be. Like, they have this, it's known as teleology, where the morality of something is derived from it fulfilling its purpose. Because of that, they say that sexuality outside of procreation, or that's closed off to procreation, is immoral no matter what. And actually, it's not abortion, I should say. It's sexuality. Abortion also relates to that. But the point is, men are attracted to that because it's a strict absolute thing. It's imposing something on the world. It's not just this relational thing. You know, men really love that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Men are much more interested in group dynamics and sort of hierarchy and what is it?
Objectivity.
I guess not hierarchy. I guess not hierarchy. It's more, objectivity. More like higher level stuff. Nationalism. That's how it is.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, let me see. I'm going to pull up a few. There was this passage that I saved from a chapter that Durkheim wrote. Here, let me just read this passage from Durkheim. All right. When a widow is seen to endure her condition much better than a widower and desires marriage less passionately, one is led to consider this ease in dispensing with the family as a mark of superiority. It is said that women's affective faculties, being very intense, are easily employed outside the domestic circle, while her devotion is indispensable to man to help him to endure life. Now, that's kind of complexly worded, but we all understand what that means. Like, women are just, because they have stronger social circles, that's why they recover better. He's arguing something different, though. And he says, actually, if this is her privilege, it is because her sensibility is rudimentary rather than highly developed. As she lives outside the community existence more than man, She is less penetrated by it. Society is less necessary to her because she is less impregnated with sociability. She has few needs in this direction and satisfies them easily. With a few devotional practices and some animals to care for, the old unmarried woman's life is full. If she remains faithfully attached to the religious traditions and thus finds herself ready protection against self-unaliving, it is because these very simple social forms satisfy all her needs. Man, on the contrary, is hard beset in this respect. As his thought and activity develop, they increasingly overflow these antiquated forms. But then he needs others. Because he is a more complex social being, he can maintain his equilibrium only by finding more points of support outside himself. And it's because his moral balance depends on a larger number of conditions that is more easily disturbed. So it's kind of a bit of a word salad because it's 19th century talk.
It is.
But he's saying that women, he basically predicted cat ladies before it was a thing. Like, women don't need to be part of a complex society to maintain an attachment to life. You know, they're a lot more simple. They're actually a lot more primal than men are. Men need to be attached to something greater than themselves. You know, and if they don't have that connection to something greater than themselves, the world, like even a small trial, relatively speaking, would just be overwhelming for them. You know, like consider what's happening in Gaza right now, and look at these guys in Hamas that are still, to this day, despite them being completely decimated by the Israelis, are still fighting to this day. Now, if you imagine putting like a modern Westerner in that situation, they would just immediately demoralize themselves and just rope. Like there'd be no way that they would fight with the tenacity that the Palestinians are.
I agree.
Because they don't have that
get the fuck out of
collective
there.
identity. They don't have that driving force in them that the Palestinians have.
Look, to be fair though, if the Palestinians were like Westerners, like if they were your average Western white guy, they wouldn't be like they'd coexist with the Israelis just fine. They'd stay on their side of the line. They'd make the best of it. They'd want to keep their heads down. They wouldn't want to go to war for Allah. Like,
well, no,
they wouldn't want to drive
they want
the
to
Jews
go to
in the sea.
war
Like, it'd be
because their
different,
country
sure.
was appropriated from them. I mean, that's like it makes perfect sense.
Well, okay, but remember when you said that we're deracinated and we don't care about the shit and like, wait, so
Oh
that's what I'm saying.
I'm not
like, I don't
talking.
think they care
Well,
that
the
much.
thing
They
is
just-
that we have an example of a modernized Western population that did not subscribe to the moral categories that we're talking about, this liberalism that we're talking about, as the Germans during World War II. And look at what they almost achieved.
Well, I think that's a very different fucking population.
No,
Very
no.
different
In
time.
terms of it,
Like,
like
it's-
Germans
they were
are
much
not
more religious
aliens;
and
they're Western
nationalistic.
Europeans. Except they
No, but it
had,
wasn't
during
modern.
World
Like when
War
I say
II,
modern,
they had.
when I say
right
modern,
or
I mean
wrong,
contemporary. I mean,
right or wrong, I'm not
Yeah,
making
I mean
a moral
con-
judgment about the government that the Germans had during World War II. I'm not making a moral judgment about them, good or wrong. But in terms of the integration of their society, it was intensely integrated. And as a result, they were able to achieve things that would be unimaginable if you look at the actual balance of forces. It's incredible
okay,
what they
but
achieved. in
contemporary
very short-
white Western guys. If you had contemporary like guys like myself or you or most of us, maybe not you, but like I think the reason Gaza is the way it is a shithole because they're fighting with the Israelis. It's a war zone. Why are they doing that? Because they're not like us. They're highly religious. They're fighting for this sky daddy called Allah.
Well, no, it's not that they're religious.
like-
It's that they want their homelands back. I would fully
Well, that's another
expect. I
factor
would
as
fully
well.
expect our side to be doing the same thing if it happened to us.
You know the term there are no atheists in foxholes? That's a big factor though. If you're highly religious, especially Muslim, you're way more likely to fucking do all that kind of stuff. Way more likely. No wonder the Middle East is so full of warfare.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, Islam definitely has this martyrdom built into it that helps to generate war fever, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But
Helps to get these excess young men off your back and go to war with the other guys.
yeah, but the thing is that if these
take their
guys were
women.
just demoralized, like their population is still growing despite the deaths that they've suffered, and that's because they have a high birth rate. They have a young age of marriage.
Yeah.
They don't have polygamy, by the way.
Now let me ask you this: would you want to be one of those motherfuckers in fucking Gaza fighting the Israelis? Would you want to be one of those?
Well,
excess
I
men
wouldn't
shooting
want to be
RPGs
in their
and getting
economic
nuked?
situation and their political situation, no. But I can admire their.
Okay.
I can admire their tenacity, and I can admire how they're willing to fight despite their awful conditions. And I'm saying they're awful.
Well, how do you think it would go if the average Gazan, right, wasn't Muslim, didn't give a shit about Israel, just decided, okay, we're going to make the best of this. We're going to get along. We're going to get along with the Israelis like the Jordanians did, like the guys on the other side, and we're going to make deals, and we're going to just be their best friends, and we're going to like Americanize, and we're going to open up. And
well, and then they're not sovereign.
You'd have a way better.
They're not a sovereign people at that point, and they've surrendered the ability to fight their enemies to a more dominant power. They become
okay, sure, and I'm sure you'd agree, that life would be way better. For like they wouldn't be in that shitty situation if that's what they decided to do.
The thing is that being a house cat that's castrated is also a lot nicer than being a tomcat on the streets. But one has agency and an actual will.
You're a house cat. You are a castrated house cat. I am. We live in Canada, bro. I can't go do the things I want to do. The fucking police could take me right in forensics. I'm out 25 to life. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're all fucking castrated. It is what it is, but I'm living a pretty good life, aside from the fact I can't really get pussy without paying for it. I mean, if you want to go Allah Akbar, if you want to stop being a castrated cat,
I'm making the point that they actually have something that they're willing to fight for. Now, the thing is, the reason why Canada is such
you have things that you can fight for.
Well, the thing is, Canada is such a dump because we don't
have
that. We don't have that.
No, but you can. But you can. Okay, Canada's not a dump relative to Gaza, by the way. It's God country relative to Gaza. It's a great place to be relative to Gaza or any place like it. But you can do that though. You can decide not to be a castrated cat. And what would you do by the? Okay, let's not get into Fed posting. Never mind. But you know what I'm saying?
But we're just talking about a different category here. You're talking about how materially pleasant it is to live in this sort of castrated existence, and I agree. It's materially a lot nicer. And I would actually say it would be hard to say on an individual level that I would prefer to be in a foxhole fighting a hopeless war for my nation versus living a comfortable but completely alienated and deracinated existence. I mean, it's hard for me to say that. I don't think I would take that offer, but that doesn't change the fact that we're talking about two fundamentally different things here. You're talking about material goods and like material comforts. I'm talking about a reason for existing, and this is what we don't have in the West. We don't have a reason for existing. Like, what's the point of being? What's the point of you being?
I do. I personally have a. Okay, there's a reason why most of us don't off ourselves. You look at suicide rates. Okay, I have a great reason for living. I love the taste of fucking pizza. I love getting on the internet. I like this conversation.
Everything you say is completely materialistic. You're not.
And I also love paying for. I love paying for sex, by the way. That's great, and I await the technological singularity that's coming, right? With this exponential growth of tech, I love AI. I like all this shit's great, man. We're living through the greatest time to be alive. Of course, there are downsides, right, with the woman thing, right? But that I can pay for hookers, you know. Yeah. I can pay for hookers. I'm like an elite in that way. So I'm personally at a place where I'm like, good. I'm okay. I'm good. I'm fine. I fucking hate women. Fuck women. I mean, sorry, YouTube algorithm. I gotta get my shit together. Sorry.
Yeah. Listen, but, I'm not saying that you should throw your life away for, say, one of these modern countries that is just completely cucked for men. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you were offered an alternative where you were given by design a stake in the society, where they're like, okay, we're going like what the Taliban are doing, where they're saying, okay, we're going to assign Taliban fighters a wife. Here's your 18-year-old wife, sir. Here you go. This is how they do it by design. This is why their fighters are so loyal despite having such a huge tech disparity, is that they have a stake in the future of the society. And they know that their women. Now, I'm not saying that we should be like the Taliban. First of all, that's just the way they are. But the way they are is it gives men an extremely strong stake in the future. They know that their women are not going to stray or not going to run off on them, not going to divorce them and take their kids. And they know that they're guaranteed a woman or guaranteed a wife and children that they can pass down a legacy to. Well, that's how you actually gain loyal men. It's not just by giving them material comforts like virtual sex or prostitution or whatever material.
Sure. But do I want to be loyal? Do I want to be, me personally as a fucking pleb, do I want to be loyal to a power? Do I want to give up my life for a power, for a group of elites that run some fucking nation? Of course not. I love being an individual. I like saying, no, I'm going to cut myself off from this nonsense. I'm going to live my own life for my own self. I'm going to be my own elite. I like that shit, dude. I'm happy about that. Thank God for that.
I don't know. I mean, if you're the kind of guy that can actually be all right with just sort of existing with copes like pizza and stuff like that, and prostitutes and whatever, I mean, that's fine. But that's just not. I mean, that's not something I can relate to. That's just not something I feel
fair.
any like. This is something that just feels completely alienating to me.
You're completely unable to conceive of something beyond yourself.
No, I can't conceive.
Here. Like
buddy.
Your entire existence is just a materialism slop. Like me and
No,
Mercer.
it's not. First of all, it's not slop. It's the finest. It's the finest things in life. Okay, look, I can conceive of all kinds of things, but I choose where I'm at and what I do. But Mercer, what is your ideal? Because you talk about how you're getting at what you personally want and what your preferences. I'm curious, what is your ideal? Where do you want to be? If you could just wave a magic wand when it comes to these things we talk about, where would you want to be?
Are we talking like where physically?
No, just in general.
Like the ideal setup that I would want for a society? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. For you personally, and I guess the society in general.
Again, trying to offer a materialistic escape from this existential idea existential understanding he's trying to confront.
Yeah. Well, I just want to live. I want to live in a strong state that enforces its borders and that identifies itself as representing the biological interests of the men that make up that state. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're explicitly of one race even. Like, for example, to give you an example that's not explicitly racialist, the Dominican Republic is a nationalism that was created out of multiple races or a mixture of races. And the way that actual nationalism happens, by the way, you cannot create a nation state out of anything but war. It has to be through war. And war against another state and defeating another state. And this is what happened in the Dominican Republic. Haiti, after the Spanish Empire collapsed, Haiti invaded the Dominican Republic and overran it. And then the Dominicans set up a secret society and then eventually created a movement, a resistance movement that then rose up against them and defeated them militarily and drove them out of the country. And this united their people together. And they're like, Dominicans are largely mulattoes. They're like a mixture of black and white. But there's some Dominicans that are more black, and there's some Dominicans that are pretty much white. But they still identify as a people, as a nation. They're one of the only countries in Latin America that has just sanguis laws, where it's your nationality comes through descent rather than through being born on the land, and that's because they're a real nation.
So
that's the kind of nation.
Exactly.
That's what I want to see. If I could create like a scenario, I'm not saying it's even realistic. If I could create like a fantasy scenario that would happen in the future, it would be like there's an uprising of people that I identify with and that identify with me, and that we share values when it comes to the kind of families that we want to create, the societies that we want to create, the communities that we want to create, and that we uprise and we overthrow the people within our territory that are preventing us from doing that, and then we create a state that enforces these borders, and then we create the communities that we want. And again, as I said, it would be nice. It would be nice because I'm of mixed French and English ancestry, Quebecois and Anglo settler ancestry. It would be nice if my state was composed of those people, but at this point now, that's not really realistic. I would still be fine with bringing in people, regardless of their race, that still agree with me and identify with that kind of ideal and want to create that. And create that kind of state and then impose those borders and enforce them. That would be my ideal.
So your personal, I was just about to ask, but it's pretty clear. Your personal place within this ideal would be that you are one of the main guys, or if not the main guy, sort of leading this movement, and you're basically the elite of that state. You're one of the head guys there. Am I right?
I don't actually. I wouldn't really care about being an elite.
Philosopher king.
I would be fine with just being an average.
Philosopher king. No,
I would actually be fine with being an average person, because the whole point of the state is that it's designed to protect and advance the interests of the average men that are going to be defending the state and securing its borders.
Are you trying to this is what I'm sort of guessing. This is I guess what I'm getting at now. Are you trying to create, and again, all totally nonviolent, totally legal, whatever, right? No Fed posting. You're trying to be, you're trying to like get a movement going with your channel. This is like one of the goals, I'm going to guess.
Well, no, I'm not saying you were asking me about my ideal. I'm not saying that I'm going to create some movement.
Yeah.
I'm saying if somebody did create something like that, I would get 100% behind it. I don't think I would ever be able to.
But is it part of it? Is this part of it? Is this part of the motivation for?
Well, no, this is just me coping, more or less. To be honest with you, I mean, this is just me coping with the reality that I'm forced into. Yeah, true cell uprising. That's literally what it is. Yo, the true cells are going to unite, and we're going to. What is it that they say? We're going to seize the means of reproduction.
Based. Get those women in their fucking place.
Maybe eventually.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much just creating a nation that actually has where the state identifies with its men, its young men, and like. It identifies with the soldier that's going to war for it, and that it advances that average man's interests, genetic interests, I guess you could say. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be like a proletarian state or whatever, like communism, but it's going to be organized around making sure that the men that are going to sacrifice their lives to protect that state are their genetic survival and their interests being advanced.
I've got a plan that, a good idea for that, like, you take the modern technology we have at our disposal right now, you fucking set that up, let's say Australia, right, or wherever the fuck, who knows, and you just import tons of women, you have AI and drones do the fucking fighting for you, you literally have women as this fucking reproductive class that's like under your boot. You can do that, like that's all throughout human history that women were under men's boot, right? So you just fucking do that again. They're just pleasure dolls that breed for you, I know I sound like a troll, by the way.
I'm not even talking about like the Grug opinions on women. I'm not even talking about like putting them in cages or whatever. Like I would even be fine with like a more
this is me, okay? I'm not saying this is what you want.
We have this sort of feigned equality where we put women on a pedestal, but we still have strict patriarchal controls. I'd be okay with that. I'm not saying that I would necessarily identify with that or I would advance that, but I'm saying like I don't have a strong desire to oppress women. I just want to put them in a situation where they're not actively working against our interests and our survival.
All throughout history, everyone was oppressed by the elites. It's more class-based, but women were, under the boot of what you would call patriarchy, which was a good thing.
I'm just saying, this is all just speculative. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm asking, like, would you? So you say you don't necessarily want to oppress. I personally want to oppress women. Like, I think.
Well, I mean, that's cool. That's cool.
I know you don't agree. Yeah, all throughout history, it's just clear as day that along with the fact that everybody in society was oppressed except for the elites, women were also heavily oppressed by the patriarchy, by men in general, which is, I think, like how it should be. That's what works. That's, I think, good for society. It's good for the birth rate.
Well, it depends on what you mean by oppression, though. That's the thing. Is that my concern is that women are not actively working against the reproductive interests of men and like the survival of the nation. If they are doing their what they should be doing, like they're marrying men and they're reproducing and they're being loyal to their men and they're raising their families. I don't want to like maliciously go out and harm them. And like,
the only way that happens, I'm not talking about harming. Okay, malicious. Yeah. No. The only way that happens is the only way that they do all these things is if you literally take their fucking phone away. They can't have a phone. They can't drive.
Honestly, that's actually one of the first. If we created Incelistan. And we created our nation in Celistan. The first thing I would do is I would like ban all rapid communication technology outside of like terminals.
How about from women? How about from women? No, guys can use that shit. Guys can use, not women though. Women, you have special laws, special rights, special. You have different rules. Okay, we should be able in Incelistan. We should be able to have this conversation and have all this high tech gadgetry. Women, not so much, right?
I don't know. Maybe
take a lesson from the Saudi Arabians.
Look, this is all sort of nitpicking on, whether we should oppress women in this way or not oppress them in that way. It's like whatever, It's minor stuff. The bottom line is.
I know it's bad for your channel. I'm sorry.
No, it's not even that it's bad for my channel. It's that I don't really like. That's not really my primary concern. As long as they are doing the right thing as far as the nation is concerned, I'm okay with them. Otherwise, being free to do whatever they want. Like as long as they're not harming the nation and they're not harming the problem is that most of the rights that women want are rights to actively harm the nation and their men. That's the problem. They want the right
but
to
they're
be able to
already
divorce frivolously.
when they have quote equal rights, when they have all the rights that they've had since the 60s has been detrimental to the nation and the birth rate and all this stuff. It's detrimental to men, detrimental to everything. You can't have that type of ideal system where women also have full rights and can do whatever they want, because when they are under those conditions,
I'm not saying
the
that they
fucking
have full
society
rights.
falls apart.
I wouldn't even give men necessarily full rights. Wouldn't have a democratic system if I could create like an ideal system. I think democracy is insane.
Yeah, democracy. I agree. It's totally retarded. It's fucking ridiculous.
Anyways, though, I should say that we're actually going a little bit over time, so I think maybe we should start winding down here. I know that we were a little bit disrupted with that original shutdown. I don't know. It depends. What's the feeling in the chat? Do you guys want to keep going, or do you want to shut down? Because I'm willing to go until 1. So that's about a half an hour from now.
Holy shit. Oh, okay, right. Different.
It's only 11. It's only 11.
Yeah, I'm talking Eastern Standard Time. I'm on Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I can go for another.
Yeah, I sort of got carried away. I sometimes when I'm having this Discord, I sort of forget that I'm on YouTube. It's publicly available. So sorry about. I'm sort of getting carried away here with a lot of really.
It's fine. You just got to be careful on how you phrase things. And I get it. Like, I tread very carefully because I understand. I'm not coming from like, if we're talking about something like, say, pornography. I can see that it has a deleterious effect on the psychology of men, but at the same time, that's like if you were to look at what's happening in South Africa with the Cape Colored kids, like they live in extreme poverty in South Africa, and they like, I remember talking to this one girl from South Africa who's a colored, and they like bash in TVs that are thrown out on the garbage, and they grind up the glass and they snort the glass to try and get some weird high out of it. Like they're really effed up. Okay.
Same.
Now, if you were to ban that,
retarded.
well, what would happen? All that they would do is they would find something else to fuck themselves up with. Like you can acknowledge that something is unhealthy from a societal point of view, and then also recognize that, well, there's needs that are being deeply unfulfilled here. And that this is really just a placeholder.
Well,
for those needs.
the average black IQ is very low, especially in that region, and they're also malnourished. I mean, it's
it's a
but
weird.
Every society finds ways to cope. So
Yeah.
like you're not gonna you ban these ways to cope, just like prohibition. You're gonna have.
What I'm saying is that the problem isn't the copes. The problem is the people doing the coping. I mean, these people are the issue. The people themselves are the problem, not the copes.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's actually some weird genetic issues there because like Khoisan, the hunter-gatherers there are really deeply diverged from other humans. So there's probably some weird genetic stuff going on there. But my point is that if you take away like a really bad behavior that they're doing that's harming them, they're just going to find something else to do. So this is my point of view when it comes to societal issues like prostitution, pornography. Like I can look at this from a societal point of view and see, okay, we shouldn't be in a situation where this is normal. But we are in this situation because men are being deprived on a vast scale.
Okay, but I don't think I think prostitution is, sure, porn, whatever, but prostitution is, I think that is the norm. If you look at marriages, you'll find that it's just a contract. It's actually a sex slave contract. You go to the woman's father, you basically buy her. She can't leave you, and there's no such thing as marital rape. She has to fuck you. Like, marital rape was only banned, I think, within the last, 40 years, 30 years. Yeah, 50, something like that. So, it's always been a kind of prostitution type of arrangement, for at least since the dawn of, last 10,000 years or whatever. I think that's fine.
I agree,
I think it's great that I can...
Well, whose daughters are going to be the prostitutes here?
Well, my daughter, I'm totally fine with my daughters being prostitutes. I think they fucking should be.
Yeah, I know, because you're like... Okay, I mean, like, the average person that would
it could be a prostitute.
That would love
if you want your
child,
daughter to get married to someone... If you want your daughter to get married to someone, right, under those based conditions, well, she is going to be basically property of that guy, right? So she's either going to be a prostitute for one dude or multiple dudes.
Well, yeah, but
You
the
know
thing
what I'm
is,
saying?
you're,
By the way,
you're looking at this once again from this like strictly materialistic, transactional point of view. There is an element of truth to that in terms of, okay, men and women, like most women want children. Okay, they understand that they need to find a man to reproduce with. But I'm saying that, okay, there is that level of it, but I don't really think, maybe I'm not black-pilled enough. I don't think that all interactions between the sexes are destined to be like that, because I have seen examples to the contrary. And I'm not talking about like Giga Chad and Giga Stacy. I'm talking about like, I've seen it even in my own family. Like my father, I'm a bit unusual in that my parents had a large age gap. My father was 20 years older than my mother. My father was born in 1941. And so his father
Holy
was
shit.
born pretty close to the turn of the century. And their marriage lasted for 35, 40 years. And they had problems, ups and downs. But in terms of, like when my grandfather died, my grandmother died within 8 months. You know, like this is a very common thing. And it wasn't necessarily that they were like, it was like some sort of Hollywood romance film, that they were like madly in love or whatever, but they became such intertwined companions that it's like once one died, the other just died out of necessity, because that's how a lot of these families were built and created. I think now maybe I'm just not black-pilled enough, but I think that is something that can exist when you don't have a highly promiscuous culture and a highly like meat market Darwinian sexuality that's the norm. You know?
Yeah, the more the communities get annihilated, the more you're going to have this Coomer thinking of just like everything is transactional, and there's no like, because there's no sense of community anymore. You don't see other people as people, and you might argue that.
Well, this is something that first, and this is one of the first things we talked about on Inkwell Maddox, because we actually disagreed with the primary BP narrative that everything just boiled down to looks. Because we saw, for example, that Mexican community was doing a lot better than whites were in terms of dating and relationships within their own community, despite, according to the BP, whites should be doing better than them. And we had to come up with an explanation for that. And we said, okay, well, it's not just about looks. It's also about being part of a community and a social network that lets you interact with women. And one of the words that he brought up a lot was propinquity, which is you develop an attraction to someone. This is something really that happens to women. You develop an attraction just based on proximity to and familiarity with a man.
Yeah, you're interacting with them.
Yeah, and it does happen. This is one of the ways that you see relationships that form that are hard to explain from a purely lookism point of view. Mm-hmm. And you see this a lot in ethnic communities because they have these strong internal communities, and they are interacting with each other all the time, and so they remain cohesive and connected to each other. Yeah. You know. This is something that I want for myself. Like one of the biggest changes in my life, I remember when it came to how I thought about these things, was when I was in high school. I went to a high school that was near a Lebanese community, and one of the teacher's aides was this Lebanese woman who was volunteering there. Well, not volunteering, like she was being paid, but it was like a part-time thing that she was doing after, and she had like 4 kids that she was taking care of as well. And she had a husband that had a good job, so they were all like, they were upper middle class, well-to-do, secular, modern, but they were of Muslim background. But like the way that she would describe her family life, her domestic life, where she would wake up each of her children individually, just really gently to get them ready for school. And she made sure that her family was well fed, taken care of, like everyone was happy. And then she went out and did other things. Like she worked at the school as a teacher's aide after she took care of everything in the house. And you could tell that she was high IQ, first of all, but she was also part of a community And she had this, and it was this natural femininity that I'd never experienced before in my life. I'd never seen it before. You know, I love my mother, but I've never seen that from her. You know, my mother's a fairly typical white woman.
Mm-hmm. My family life is very very different from a lot of Americans. I was homeschooled my entire life, all the way through high school, and I frequently meet friends of my father who are like, "Damn, you got like your mother's a good woman." I mean, I've heard that like my entire life, and my mother and father get along quite well. Like there's no bickering in the house at all. I've seen other women jealous of my father, like that they don't have him or someone like him, and I've seen other men jealous of my father, and other women jealous of my mother.
Yeah,
That's what I should say.
Yeah, and I
Because
try not to
you
idealize
have a very
things, you know?
good dynamic. And it's not purely transactional. You don't have people shouting at each other. They both know their roles and their like positions, and they both know what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, and I just wonder
They're
to
both
myself,
highly religious.
if the reality is that everything is just purely transactional and materially driven, and I would include like sexual desire and attraction and desire to fulfill that, I would include that as part of materialism. Not just getting money, not just gold digging, but also like getting your rocks off. I would also include that as part of the material desires. If that's everything that, if all relationships between men and women boil down to that, then it's like, what's even the point of caring at all about relationships? Like at that point, then you should just be able to say, well, hooker maxing is all there is. Then, you know, like you might as well just go with that, because that's how all relationships are, anyways. I mean, there are some guys that do that and they're fine with it. But I couldn't do that. Like if that's really the ultimate depth of all relationships between men and women, what's the point? You might as well like at that point then, if I was convinced of that beyond any way of coping, I guess you could say, I probably wouldn't even be able to make videos at that point, because I just wouldn't really care about anything anymore. Because it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, it's pretty hopeless, right?
Yeah, it's like, okay, I mean, I guess it's just this material. You have to have this set of stats that you fulfill, and if you miss the mark because of your birthright or your lack of it, well, I guess that's it. You know, it's just bad luck. You know, better luck next roll. You know.
Sometimes, like, because I have a super religious background, and like I'm one of those people that genuinely believes, like, there's no doubting anymore, like, for me, what I believe, like, and so even though I can go to church and like see that nothing is really different within it as outside of it, except for a few things, because my church is very strict and we follow what we're supposed to. But that still doesn't account for the fact that society is like going like downhill. There's no escaping from that, and the consequences of that. Like, you can't escape the water supply being infected essentially with birth control and what that does to women, even on the smallest scale. So, like, I can still go to church and have somewhat of a community, but I don't know where I was getting to.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not fully black-pilled. Maybe not. I don't know. The idea that me and First had and the other guys that were the OGs in Inkwell Maddox was that there's more to this than just this concrete LMS stack that everyone talks about. That it's a little more complicated than that. There's more nuance to it. And that it isn't just about like women crunching numbers in their heads and determining the optimal outcome and then pursuing it. That there is genuinely a means to be happy and content, and that there's also there's also something that we're missing, even if we get those material needs filled. You know, like you still see, like the thing is, like for example, if everything boiled down to materialism, we should be seeing women by and large being very happy as well. We really don't see that. Women, as a matter of fact, their suicide rates are climbing, even though they're a lot lower than men's are. They are actually climbing slightly faster than men's are. And the mental health of women is massively worse than it used to be. So I just think it's not that simple. You know, there's a lot more nuance to it than just you just need to enslave them and then do whatever you want with them, and then you're going to be happy because you can get your box off.
Yeah, it's not quite that simple. I mean, part of the reason I don't essentially rope and I'm able to cope with things is because of how religious I am. And I live a very good life. I have a decent career. I think personally, I haven't just quite found someone yet, because I don't think someone of my ability and looks level is going to stay alone forever. I don't think that's possible. Even if I get black pilled to the point where I'm like 35 and I'm still single, that hasn't happened yet.
I think that's like the average marriage age now for men.
Yeah, geez, that's fucking insane. I almost lost my shit when my pastor was like, "Oh, well, you know, people are getting married older now." I'm like, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, how can you say that as like some kind of hopeful cope? That's just like, yeah, you have to eat this bullet. What? That's insane. And I try and personally, because I'm so religious, I try and lessen the extent that materialism grabs me. But then you can look at literally everything in your life and be like, well, essentially that's materialism. Like,
well, actually, you know
I
what?
live within the material
I'm just going to
world.
interrupt you for a second, and because I thought of a way to put it. Okay, it's not that I think women don't actually want to do the LMS thing and pursue their desires. What I'm saying is that they want to do that instinctively. I guess the same way that men do, really. I mean, men also want to. Yeah. We want like the hottest woman that we can find. We want to get our rocks off. What I'm saying is that even if you want that, that's not going to actually make you happy. And this is what we're finding. And what I'm saying is that we actually do have to restrict the options of both men and women, but especially women, because women are the deciding factor here. We have to restrict their options so that they can do the right thing, even though it's more difficult and it's less attractive in the beginning, because in the long run, they will be happier. Everyone will be happier, is what I'm saying. I'm saying that fundamentally, the happiness, they just don't understand what makes them happy and what makes their lives meaningful and fulfilled.
Fundamentally, people do things because of three reasons: incentive, opportunity, and desire. If you have incentive of opportunity, but a woman doesn't necessarily desire it, well, that incentive and opportunity might generate desire. And like, you have 2 out of 3 that they will... The opportunity will come. It's just as long as you have an incentive or an opportunity. Fuck, my words are getting mashed up. As long as you have an incentive to do something or a desire to do something, once the opportunity presents itself to do whatever it may be, you will do it. And so even if there are women that are essentially, they don't want to do X, Y, or Z, the incentive is there. Like, that's why men are so essentially avoidant when it comes to marriage, is because, okay, a woman may not want to divorce him, but she's incentivized to divorce him at all times. So whether it's day one or 50 years into the relationship or the marriage, if the desire isn't there, the incentive is still always there because of the state. The state is making it making it viable to divorce whoever it may be and take their resources. Whether or not the desire is there, the incentive is there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Pozdrav just sent a super chat. Good content. Thank you very much, Pozdrav. It's greatly appreciated. He's actually in Europe, so it's awesome that he's able to catch the stream this late. I hope we didn't keep him up, though.
It'd be awesome to get a European on here.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing my next stream. It's going to be a little better structured this time. This is the first stream I've ever done actually solo. And I also have to credit Medican with helping me set up things as well as they were. I don't know what a disaster it would have been if he didn't help me do all the preliminary stuff. So I have to thank him for that. And I do think we're going to wrap it up by 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so in about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. Like, one of the things about a religion that you see, and well, not even just religion, like rational philosophy, like what you see with Plato and Aristotle, is that there's a difference between what you desire, like your appetites, and what is rationally good for you. And that's following the natural purpose of whatever the act is that we're talking about. Like the sexual act, the purpose is, according to what it does, is to produce children. So it should be in that, the only moral way to do that is in that context, which is with a woman in a way that is possible to conceive children in. Not necessarily only to conceive children, but that it has to be capable of conceiving children. There has to be. That's how the Catholic Church. That's how the Catholic Church opposes contraception. By the way, it's not in the Bible that they can find that. It's actually in. Through philosophy that they developed that idea. Now you don't have to agree. Like you don't have to get into like the metaphysical stuff or the philosophical stuff or religious stuff, but you can agree that people can want things that will harm them, and they won't find out how miserable they are until after the fact. And this is true. Now, I know that this is kind of a red pill cope in a lot of ways, that they're like, all the cat ladies and stuff, but it is true. Like if you look at, there was a stat that I was looking at for chatbots. And what was fascinating is if you look at the uses of chatbots, I'm going to see if I can find this on X actually.
Is it actually more women? That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's women over 35, actually 35 plus. Here, right here. So if you look at demographics for generative AI app users, okay, so you see this is the 50% mark. That means that as many men as women use it. So we can see that pretty much all of them are biased towards men because men are using them for more or less practical reasons, Whereas if you look at character AI, well, that's a companion AI, and it's overwhelmingly being used by women, over 70%, and the average user is well over the age of 35. So what they're finding is and it's the thing is, it's not even necessarily that these women are all Chad chasers. In a lot of cases, these women are they just ruined relationships with normal men that they had for whatever reason. Maybe they thought they could do better. Like, it's not necessarily that they're only chasing Chads. Maybe they just refuse to become content in the relationship that they did have. Like, I've seen a lot of that too. I would say that's actually more common than explicitly like chasing Chads for one night stands or whatever.
It's just whatever the relationship is just not good enough because what they're seeing on social media apps.
Yeah, exactly.
Changes their perception of their relationship.
Exactly. And what you find is a lot of these women end up, if they're not married by 35, their chances of actually getting married go down quite sharply. And we're going to have an entire generation of women like that, and they are going to become lonely. Now, men are lonelier in terms of objective loneliness, like the lack of contact. But the thing is, we are used to this. Like, this is how we are. Like, we're always alone, pretty much. Like, you start, as a man, you start from the bottom. And you either manage to work your way maybe up slightly in terms of status, or you just stay at the bottom. There's no real... You don't really change much. Whereas for women, they start off just being absolutely adored, and everything just slowly slopes downwards. Now I would say women always have an advantage over men in terms of desirability to be around and social contacts and stuff like that, I think they're always doing better than men, but the gap does close substantially as you get older than 35 and you get into your 40s and you get into your 50s. And, you know, this is what we're seeing. Like, a lot of these women that are using this character AI, like, they would have been much happier if they just formed normal marriages maybe in their mid-20s or something, or early 20s. And had families, then they would be focusing on their families instead of this shit. You know,
Yeah,
and of course their looks match is probably already hanging from the ceiling somewhere, but you know what I mean.
Okay, I wanted to ask you a question. I've wanted to ask you since I found your videos.
Yeah, sure.
Because your voice is so strikingly similar. I've had this thought on my mind forever. Are you in any way, like, you're probably not him, but are you, alternative hypothesis?
No, listen, I have a lot of respect for that guy, but I also have a lot of very deep differences with him.
Yeah, clear.
No, I am not. I have no relation to alt-hype, but he was actually the first serious red pill when it came to race stuff that I had. And actually, I remember, because I grew up a pretty typical liberal, because I grew up in, at the time, Ottawa was like 80% white, and the suburb that I was in was 90+% white, so it was basically like what you would expect in 1950s America, almost, or like 1960s America, because Canada became diversified much more recently.
And it was fast. Like,
it was rapid. It was a rapid change.
It was like a slow burn in America.
Oops.
Jeez, but it's insane how Canada's been just swamped.
Yeah, so we had that change. That change happened quite rapidly. But as far as beliefs went, I had the same typical beliefs as a liberal, because everything fit together perfectly. Like, if you believe that everyone is the same fundamentally, like all groups are the same, like the way liberals think, right, is that there's a difference in the individuals. You know, there are some individuals that are on the, let's say, the less intelligent end, some are on the more intelligent end, but all the groups are roughly the same. That's the beliefs that we had. The world was so much simpler and made so much more sense back then. You know, because you could believe something really simple like left-wing liberalism, because you knew it would work, because everyone's fundamentally the same. So you can have these universalist values, and you know that it'll work. I remember when he introduced me to the differences between populations in various traits.
Yeah.
I remember the feeling it was the weirdest thing. It felt like, I guess it's the same feeling that, like, a religious person who's never had to think about their belief system would feel when they are presented with something that refutes their belief system without any ability to really counter it, like in some way.
I've had that feeling before.
It's like a gut feeling that kind of shakes you. I remember getting that feeling when I saw his videos on differences between groups, because he grew out of the new atheist movement, and that was back when he was called Fringe Elements.
Fringe Elements, yeah, classic Fringe Elements.
Yeah,
you know what he was called before Fringe Elements?
What was that?
Confederal Socialist.
Confederal Socialist.
Yeah, it's crazy. I followed like the rabbit hole all the way back on his stuff. I've been a huge fan of his for a long time.
I mean, and you know what? I have to credit him, even though I have a lot of things I disagree with on him. Well, he's kind of a spurg, to be honest with you. I mean,
100%.
He is, but you know, the thing is, he's also wicked smart, and he's willing to be. I would actually say he's like a contrarian in a way, even though he's like he still sticks to his guns, but he likes to oppose the majority.
Yeah.
And I would actually say he's kind of sociopathic in a lot of ways. And I don't even mean that like in an insulting way, like he's an evil person. But you could tell like he's not somebody who has like deep emotional feelings, you know? Like he's someone who's deeply focused on rigid logic. And
he's deeply logical, yes.
Yeah, and he just doesn't really give a shit about emotions, and I can respect that. But yeah, he was like my first major red pill. And no, I know that I do kind of sound like him, but no, I have no relation to him at all.
That's awesome. I know, just because when I can't remember how I found your videos, but I was like, did Alt Hype just do a switcheroo? Is he just like doing something else now? And I probably was one of my comments on your video.
No. Doesn't he still do videos? Like, I think he still has a YouTube channel, doesn't he?
He does videos still, and he live streams every now and then, but I never catch it. It's always at the goofiest, weirdest times. He's like, you have to catch it when the fucking moon is full or something.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But I think I still point people that I talk to his most, in my opinion, important video is testosterone and political. Oh shoot, what's it called?
Yeah, isn't that where he talks about how both men and women with higher testosterone vote more right wing or something like that?
Yes, the political consequences of low testosterone and what that does. And it's like a 45-minute video, and it is so outrageously important because of, like, once the levels shift lower, the percentage of people that have such obscenely low testosterone and what that does to them and to their behavior. Like, if people don't understand that, they don't understand the people they're standing next to, essentially.
Yeah. I remember that video. I think he got it a little bit wrong because he was talking about how men and women with higher testosterone were like healthier and better. And it's like, no, like there's women have a much lower limit to how much testosterone they can take before it causes problems. But the video itself was good. Like it explained a lot. And I remember he would just make banger after banger. And at that time, I was basically like a liberal leftist. I would have been like one of these fedora types that was like the new atheist fedora types. And he just completely rocked my mind with his stuff on race. And I remember it because that's how I bridged over to him, because he would make reply videos. This is back when you could make a reply video and it would show up as a reply video to a YouTube video. And he would make reply videos to all these new atheist types that would do all this stuff on the Bible and, and what really drew me to him was he would make these videos showing empirically how like this scientific reality demonstrates that this belief in equality is false, and they would deny it with the same sort of like fearful, furtive ways that they expected religious people to act towards them critiquing their religion. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, that's actually kind of wild that you could see that in real time. Yeah, I've never been the same after that.
Yeah.
For a gents, you were always red-pilled because you're diverse yourself and you lived around diversity. Yeah, I can understand that. And it makes sense from an American point of view. But this is also why I have a little bit of sympathy for libtards that have these very idealistic and simple belief systems, because I can understand what it's like to never have experienced that personally. And then you go through it and it's like, holy crap. Or not necessarily go through it, but you're given something that you just cannot deny. You're given a demonstration of reality that is irrefutable. And you have to completely transform your worldview. I understand why people are afraid of that.
Have you ever experienced a self-awareness of cognitive dissonance? Like you're hit with something that totally you cannot refute.
Yeah.
And you at first have a cognitive dissonance and you like reject it, but then you overcome it.
Yeah, that's actually what happened to me. Is that I was rocked with the race stuff first, and then I sort of withdrew from it, and I just avoided all of this stuff altogether, and I just coped about other things. Like I was really into Ron Paul for a while, and like libertarianism. I looked up like economic stuff, and I just
essentially you just tried to like not look at what is right in front of you.
Yeah, I just stayed away from the race stuff, and I just ignored it. Like I just didn't let it enter my mind, even though I knew about
it. It isn't there. Yeah.
Yeah, even though I knew about it. But then the race stuff came back, ironically, because of Jewish stuff. Like I stopped being a libertarian because I realized that I was following this guy called Peter Schiff, and he's big in
Yeah, Peter
libertarian
Schiff,
circles.
he's a classic. My dad still cannot get off that guy. My dad's still a big Peter Schiff fan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything bad to say about him. Actually, he's a cool guy. But I remember finding out that he was Jewish, and I was like, oh, that's odd. And then I looked up Murray Rothbard, and I realized, wait a second, Murray Rothbard, Milton Friedman. And I kept noticing all of these names and all of their origins being the same. And then I realized, wait a minute, let's look up all these other things. And then I found the overrepresentation statistics. And I was like, again, I had another mind-blown moment where I was... And this was before alt-hype was... Like, I don't know if you followed his rabbit hole far enough back, but he used to resist the stuff on the small hats.
Yeah, 100%.
He used to keep it down to differences in group averages. Which, of course, there is going to be overrepresentation there. But
he and Sean Last did a lot of different coping mechanisms to try and get around it. And then eventually, I'm unsure. But I want to say Sean Last and him kind of were like, you know what? We can't ignore this anymore. It's not like... Yeah. It's not what we think it is.
But then you realize groups exist, and groups have interests, and they pursue their interests. It doesn't even matter if they get there completely legitimately. They're still going to pursue their interests.
They're not even aware that they're pursuing this interest.
Yeah, your interests may not align with theirs. And what happens when those interests are not aligned, but they are so much more, they have so much more dominance over you because they hold all these high positions. They're able to impose their interests onto your group. And, this is basically what happened in the United States. It's not even necessarily that there was a bunch of skullduggery or whatever. You could just explain it as group interactions and how this group has opposing views to this group, and because they're more powerful, they impose their views. It's not in the interest of the group that's being dominated. But anyways, that's another story. But that's kind of how I found this other stuff again. But then I also found the black pill stuff. And that also, once again, was a big revelation. Changed my understanding.
What was like the first black pill channel you found?
The first one was Face and LMS, of course.
Face and LMS? Yeah, I remember him back in the day.
Yeah, of course.
I can't remember exactly who... I'm looking through my subs, but I don't think I'll find them. I can't remember who was the first black pill adjacent that I found. I don't know. I just too much time watching YouTube shit. That's why I changed my phone. I changed my phone to a phone that can't get browsers or anything, so that I don't waste my time rotting on YouTube while I'm trying to work or something.
Yeah. Yeah, Eggman's another one. I sort of followed him after he became big. I became aware of him then. But Face and LMS, I was aware of him when he was doing his things, like when he was doing his live streams. And then I found Inkwell Maddox. Now, Face and LMS does great stuff, but again, it's very much focused on the look stuff, and that's all important. But there's only so much you can say about that. And it was more, for me, it was more like soaking in that and understanding it, because it was all empirical stuff. But there's nothing I could really say about it. There's nothing I could add to it, because it's just, okay, this is just the data. This is what the data shows.
Okay. Do you know the YouTube channel Julius Perceiver?
Julius Perceiver? I don't think so.
Watch a few of his videos. He does a pretty good job with the editing, and his takes are pretty solid.
Oh yeah? Is it like more standard black pill stuff, or?
Some of it's kind of like existential, and some of it is, I guess you could say, black pill, red pill adjacent.
Oh yeah.
It's hard to explain. He does a lot of different, but very, very, very close to black pill stuff. It just, his editing style is very enjoyable. It's very entertaining with the amount of information he puts in there too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He would be he would be one of the guys that I would really, really recommend you try and get on. Like, if there's anyone who would have a good, I think, back and forth banter out of a lot of subjects, it would be that guy. He's not the biggest YouTube channel, but he's very well spoken, and I think he'd have a lot of good insights on things. So maybe try to get in contact with him. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be
But
interesting. Yeah.
That might be my own personal bias. You could watch a few of his videos and see what
Yeah,
you
it
think.
could be. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, other than that, though, I mean, it was basically just face and LMS. I mean, I also saw the MGTOW stuff. The MGTOW stuff actually led me to the Black Pill stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a guy I would
yeah,
love
yeah.
to talk to, by the way, is Thinking Ape.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That guy's okay. Listen, this is insane. This is another situation of someone's voice may be misleading me, but look up the YouTube channel Spell and Shield and watch 5 seconds of a video and tell me that's not Thinking Ape.
Oh, could be. I mean, Thinking Ape has a pretty distinctive voice. So.
It is so distinctive, and I've tried to comment on the few videos, and I think my comments are being deleted because it's the exact same format, but he speaks over video game of what his thoughts are on various. Here, let me.
Well, is it like on women and on the MGTOW stuff?
No.
Or is it...
No. Play 5 seconds of his voice in this video, and you will. It's identical, literally identical.
Okay, well, what is the subject of the? Okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
It's just video games. Like whoever this guy is, it has to be.
So
It
can
has
you
to
spell
be
it out?
Thinking Ape. Sorry, what'd you say?
Can you spell it out?
Okay, so I linked it in the Reese Mercer colors.
All right, let's take a look. All right, and we're gonna have to wrap it up because it's getting pretty right here. Okay, it's getting pretty late.
Yeah.
But we will watch this and we will conclude.
She's been looking for an insight in that data.
I forgot to put an ad blocker on this. Oh boy, I hope I don't get banned for saying that. I was just joking, YouTube. I was just kidding. I love
Allegedly.
Listen,
You gotta say
I
allegedly.
whenever I'm not doing something else, I take my free time to watch ads. Okay,
Awesome.
on YouTube. That's how much I love ads.
You're YouTube hero.
Video about the topic of scope of the game, the size, and what they're trying to do.
It's
Oh,
literally
okay,
just
yeah, that is him.
because-
that is him.
Yeah,
My impression
it has to
is
be, but
that
he's never
some people
acknowledged
might
it once.
be-
He's never brought it up or mentioned it any time I've ever watched Thinking Ape. That he has a gaming channel on the side. that
Well,
he talks about
we know that he
video
games because he talks about it on Unthinking Ape. So
Yeah.
no, it's
And no,
definitely
it's-
it's him. It's 100%
It's
him.
It's funny because the crossover on the comments isn't there. There's no one on Thinking Ape that's mentioning Spell and Shield, and there's no one on Spell and Shield that mentions Thinking Ape. It's like a completely different ecosystem. It's
No, I don't
It
even
just made me laugh.
I don't even think this was an AI model because even the intonation and the way he talks, it's clearly not an AI. Or if it is, it would be a very expensive AI.
yeah.
Which I don't think he would be able to afford. So I think it is him because that voice is just, yeah, you're right. Immediately. Yeah. That's him.
Yeah, like it's so distinctive. Like yours was similar to Alt Hype, but not close enough that I was like, okay, it's him. Whereas this one is like, there's no.
Yeah, that's
no
true. That's true.
possible way.
Maybe we should avoid it just in case he wants to keep them separate, which would make sense if he's trying to just do regular gaming. I imagine that he doesn't want to associate it with something that you could say is a little more political.
True.
Yeah.
All right, well, it
I
was
mean, the
awesome
thing is,
talking
though,
to
is
you.
that we're speculating, right? So that nothing can be
Yeah.
proven here. So it's not like I think we're okay as far as him getting shadow banned.
Yeah.
Because we're just speculating that it's him. We don't know that it's him.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So, anyways, guys,
And,
I think we're gonna shut the stream down now because it's getting pretty late at this point.
It was awesome talking with you.
Yeah, it was
had
great
fun
talking to
time.
you too, and everyone else that joined the call and had a chat. It was awesome. And this is my first stream. I'll see if I can make it a regular thing, and I'll see if I can structure it a little bit better. We're going to be doing the next stream earlier because Europeans, for the most part, weren't able to participate. And there are a lot of Europeans, especially callers, that I think could add a lot to the conversation, especially with regards to geomaxing. So we're going to have that for the next stream, and it'll be a little bit earlier. So talk to you guys later. It was a great stream.